the leader of majority, having explained the reasons and the standing orders being very clear that it is the following day. The following day is Thursday, the 22nd of March, and the House shall sit from 2:30 p.m. So, having concluded with the rest of the business in the order paper, the question on this bill will be put for second reading. So the time, the day when the question will be put is Thursday 22nd, which is tomorrow, at 2:30 when the House reconvenes. It's just as simple as that. So there's no debate. The standing orders do not contemplate a debate. So the request by the leader of the majority party is granted, and the question on this bill will be put tomorrow, Thursday, 22nd of March, 2018, at 2:30 p.m. It is so ordered. There cannot be a point of order on a decision from the chair. No, you need to read your standing orders. I don't want to start now throwing everybody out because they don't want to see the standing orders. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, appointment of members to the Committee on Appointments.
Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that guidance, Mr. Speaker. Can do consultation between now and 2:30 tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, you can see. No.
Other members who have already finished your business.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, people came to their own business. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant.
Those members who are withdrawing, please do so without disrupting the proceedings.
Mr. Speaker, they are also doing consultation. I am sure they must be consulting some people as I consult the government. But Mr. Speaker, I thank you. I beg to move, Mr. Speaker, that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 204 and the resolution of the House of Thursday, December 14, 2017, appointing members into the Committee of Appointment, this House further approves the appointment of the following members to the committee: the Honorable Peter Kaluma, MP, the Honorable Tom Joseph Kajwang, MP, the Honorable Gertrude Mbeyu, MP, the Honorable Esther Passaris, MP, the Honorable Joshua Kimilu, MP, the Honorable Eseli Simiyu, MP, and the Honorable Oku Kaunya, MP. Speaker, these are members from the minority. And I want to thank the former Prime Minister. The minority. I want to thank the former Prime Minister. He has forced the leadership to bring these names. We told them to bring, they refused. But you know, when Baba speaks, things move. Badi listens, Honorable Badi listens, Honorable Junet listens, the rank and the file membership of NASA listens. And that's why when we were vetting the cabinet secretaries, these members were not. And among these members, Mr. Speaker,
Under members, that lady who is walking out, you, stand where you are. How many times do I have to keep telling members that you can't just walk here, then the other one is pulling you to assign to go. You cannot do without shaking hands. Now you go up to the door, bow, come and greet her as you wanted to do now.
Mr. Speaker, this is the whole confusion of Nairobi Metropolitan Bill. It's very confusing this afternoon. So, Mr. Speaker, among these members, there are two members who are automatically in the Committee of Appointment, and that is the Honorable John Bandi, the leader of minority, and the Honorable Junet Mohammed, the minority whip. So, Mr. Speaker, the handshake has even made now my life and the life of Parliament easier. So when Baba says you participate in the appointment committee, they will participate. And so on this juncture, I want to thank the former Prime Minister. And if you cross Baba, you will have faced the consequences. Speaker, I was in ODM. I am a student of Baba. So there are some people who think they can cross Baba. If you are in his party, you either leave the way myself and Honorable Ruto left. If you are in his party, you must toe the line. And today I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, these are good members. We have the Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, this committee is chaired by the Speaker, and it is also deputized by the Deputy Speaker. It has leadership, and it has members. It's a very, very crucial and important committee. And before it this week, Mr. Speaker, is the new Attorney General. I am sure we have a meeting today at 4:30. Once this House approves these new members. And then tomorrow we have the public, of course, vetting of the Attorney General so that we can move all of us together as a House. You know, it's good to move so that on matters of national interest, as Baba has said, as the President has said, we want to move that way. And I'm sure as we move, there will be casualties. Not from the Jubilee side. There will be casualties from the other side. And those casualties, Mr. Speaker, are not fast. There were many casualties since independence. If you read the history of Kenya, 1963, the members were there, 1992, 1997, 207, 202, 2013. So if you are a casualty, you just need to relax for a few days, and then you get back your bearing. And you might, the person who caused you that injury might also be injured in the subsequent match. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a very important procedural motion. It doesn't have, we don't need to dwell much on it because the Metropolitan Bill is no longer on the order paper. Then we go to the Cybercrime Bill and we deal with a matter that is important to the country, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move and ask the leader of minority. Today, his deputy is sitting next to him because he has realized the signs are not good. Honorable Mbui, Mr. Speaker, has not been here. But now, after what happened yesterday, every leader is taking his position in the House so that if you are not there, you will be a casualty. So my old schoolmate, we are with him in my high school, in Moifos, Honorable Mbui. Please, be loyal to Honorable Bandi and be loyal to Baba. You will not go wrong. And Chris to follow suit. And you not to follow suit. I beg to move and ask Honorable Bandi to.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this motion. Mr. Speaker, remember, Mr. Speaker, you had earlier asked me to nominate membership, our members to this committee on appointments, and I declined. And Mr. Speaker, I gave reasons. As a coalition, we have taken a position, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, since then, some developments have taken place, which we are all aware of. And right now, circumstances have changed. And contrary to what Honorable Duale, the leader of majority, said, that Baba has instructed. Actually, I really don't need to get instruction from Baba because I always know what he would think or what he has in mind in every situation. And I'm sure that now he's okay if we would have our members to the committee. Madam Mr. Speaker, looking at the membership, you will realize that these are members from the NASA coalition. And I want to be very, very clear that NASA is still a coalition. I think for those who are getting a little confused about this matter, need to be informed that NASA remains a coalition. I'm leader of the minority. I lead the NASA troops in this House. I know Honorable Duale was referring to some events happening in another chamber, Senate. I just want to ask my colleagues to focus ahead and forget about what is playing out in another House. National Assembly, I don't anticipate any issues arising. I want to lead a united team. In this list, we have 4 members from the ODM party. We have a member each from Wiper, Ford Kenya, and ANC. And that is the way we will go. We will make sure that all the NASA affiliate parties are represented. I consulted with my colleagues from these other partner parties before we brought the names to the House. And I want to just urge the House to support. And there are no casualties. Mr. Speaker, is likely to take to happen. I heard my friend Duale making my deputy here jittery. I want to just give confidence to my deputy that his seat is safe and let him focus on delivering services to the NASA coalition. We are rolling out in the coming days, Mr. Speaker, a program on how we are going to oversight the executive and the majority side, Mr. Speaker. We are going to play our role effectively. The only thing that is going to change is that we are going to cooperate on matters of national importance and major issues that are helping to move this country forward. We will definitely cooperate. But that does not mean that NASA has issues. We may be seeing a lot of things happening out there, but Mr. Speaker, in the National Assembly, I want to assure you once again and assure that our supporters out there that we will work together. If anything, NASA Summit still exists. The NASA Coalition Agreement exists. These are the issues that come about is sibling rivalry. But those sibling rivalry are always managed. But it should also be given to us. Actually, Kenya, more particularly, us in NASA, should be a test case. We are an example to the world. It is very rare to find a coalition existing after election for 5 years. We existed as called coalition in the opposition for 5 years, and I don't see anything stopping us from existing as NASA coalition, even for the remaining 4.5 years. Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude there and say that, and ask my colleagues that we support these members. I know Peter Kaluma is a non-lawyer, TJ Kajwang the same. We also have Eseli Simiu, someone who has had experience, is serving his third term in Parliament. We also have Mbeyu Gertrude, Esther Pasaris, and Oku Kaunya. Those are new members, but working together with these experienced members, together with myself and my deputy. I just wanted to correct Leader of Majority. I think he forgot a bit. It's the Leader of Minority and the deputy who are automatic members of this committee and not the whip. So together with my deputy, we will work it is unfortunate that we only have the Attorney General remaining to vet. That the Jubilee enjoyed themselves vetting the other cabinet secretary appointees, which is now water under the bridge. But I'm sure Kenyans will see some difference when now NASA team joins together with the Jubilee team in vetting the Attorney General. And maybe they will see what they missed if we participated in vetting the Cabinet Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I second.
Order, I don't know which member is this. Honour members, I propose the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 204 and the resolution of the House on Thursday, December 14, 2017, appointing members into the Committee on Appointments, this House further approves the appointment of the following members to the committee: the Honourable Peter Kaluma MP, the Honourable Tom Joseph Kajwang MP, the Honourable Gertrude Bayu MP, the Honourable Esther Pasaris MP, the Honourable Joshua Kimilu MP, the Honourable Eseli Simiu MP, and the Honourable Oku Kaunya MP. The desire of the House that I put the question. Very well. I put the question that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 204 and the resolution of the House on Thursday, December 14, 2017, appointing members into the Committee on Appointments, this House further approves the appointment of the following members to the committee: the Honourable Peter Kaluma MP, the Honourable Tom Joseph Kajwang MP, the Honourable Gertrude Bayu MP, the Honourable Esther Pasaris MP, the Honourable Joshua Kimilo MP, the Honourable Eseli Simiyu MP, and the Honourable Oku Kaunya MP. As many as that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Just to again announce to the new members of the committee that there is scheduled a meeting today in room number 9 at 4:30 p.m. of that committee on appointments. Next order.
Mr. Speaker, Part 2 of the bill provides for the offenses punishable under the Act. And Mr. Speaker, the offenses created under this part includes the following. Number one, unauthorized access by infringing on security measures. Speaker, there are people who hack the systems of Kenya Defense Forces. They can hack the systems of the National Intelligence Service. They can hack the systems of government agencies and government departments. So there are penalties, interference to a computer system, program, or data. Unauthorized interception of data from one computer system over the telecommunication system. Illegal devices and access codes. There are people who use illegal communication systems. You remember the Chinese and the Koreans who set up a communication center in Runda, I think was it in 2015, and who were involved in financial fraud, in credit cards. So unauthorized illegal use of devices and access codes, passwords, unauthorized disclosure of password or access codes. If somebody steals or access your password, your access code, if you are in a banking, in a financial sector, in the security sector. Speaker, cyber crimes are many. False publication, Mr. Speaker, what we call the fake news. The other day, Mr. Speaker, God forbid, there are people who said when our father, the former president, was in Israel, and he was getting well and he was coming back, there were people who posted fake news. Every day you see fake news, so this bill will deal with you. If you are making your daily income from creating fake news, your days are numbered. Child pornography, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's very, very sad. There are countries if you go to and you type and want to access any pornography, the system rejects. In UAE, in China. So Speaker, our children are not safe. They are not safe. Our children can access and watch nude photos, pornography videos. So Speaker, we must protect the family. We must protect our children. And protecting the family starts with our children. We should not allow, we should have a system that does not allow you to access child pornography or any type of pornography, Mr. Speaker. Computer forgery. Speaker, there's people who use even documents, transfer documents using forgery, using computer. Cyber stalking and cyber bullying. So Speaker, we are the greatest victims as members of parliament, as leaders. We are the greatest victims of cyber stalking and cyber bullying. Threatening. So Speaker, somebody sends you a message that we will meet in 2022. He doesn't know whether he will reach there or you reach there or whether you will stand. Speaker, our families are being threatened. Speaker, bullying. Female members, families are breaking up because there are people who are bullying. I'm sure members will speak. They discuss your wife. They create stories. There's a lot of cyber stalking and cyber bullying, hate speech, ethnic profiling. Speaker, we must use the gadgets that we have for progressive and for in a responsible way. This part, Mr. Speaker, also provides for the offenses by a body corporate and confiscation of all the fortified assets. Mr. Speaker, Part 3 of the bill provides for the investigation procedures including search, seizure of stored computer data upon obtaining a warrant from a court, which warrant shall be used. Speaker, people are using your identity, your name, like Honorable Sabina Chege's case, to access and use technology. Speaker, they use your photo, your profile, and they con people. I mean, they say that we send 2,000 shillings, we'll employ you. Mheshimiwa is giving motorbikes. Mheshimiwa is giving this bursary, but you need to pay some fees. They are known, and I'm sure they're watching us. Your days are numbered. The power of a police officer to search without a warrant in a special circumstance upon production. Mr. Speaker, extremism, radicalization to various extremist group, terrorists, is done through computer. Computer sites are open. Children are recruited. So, Mr. Speaker, in fact, this bill even will help us in dealing with the recruiters who are around here. Radicalization. Mr. Speaker, I have seen the minority whip has come. And before he came, I said, when Baba says right, you do right. You disobey him, the casualty will be, you go home. You go home if you belong to his party. That is a position I know when I was not here. It's a very straight position. It's like the Catholic Church. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill talks about a central authority that will be created. Part 4 of the bill, Mr. Speaker, will provide for the general provisions, territorial jurisdiction, whereby any court of competent jurisdiction shall try any offense under this act. But, Mr. Speaker, criminals have devised new methods of committing crimes through, for example, child abuse, identity theft, online fraud. Mr. Speaker, banks in our country, they don't want to disclose, but they lose billions of shillings every year through this kind of online fraud. Messages to people, their family. So, Mr. Speaker, then if you look at the financial challenges, since mobile money channels, Mr. Speaker, started every day, for example, 7.5 million transactions goes through the money transfers, and 2.9 billion money goes through that system. But, Mr. Speaker, the Kenya electronic payment system also that the banks use, the volume that goes through on a daily basis is 100 billion, Mr. Speaker. These systems, what am I coming to? 7.5 million transactions in M-Pesa, that brings together 2.9 billion. The Kenya electronic payment system, the one that even us we receive our salaries through, that system in the financial sector, is about 100 billion daily. These systems, Mr. Speaker, are open to vulnerable threats in these systems. And this bill is going to cure, Mr. Speaker. A network of, Mr. Speaker, there are people who create a network of private computers, you know, intended for malicious, they put malicious software. I'm sure the Vice Chair, who is an expert on that, and they control it. So, Mr. Speaker, what am I coming to? Mr. Speaker, there are people who earn their living through extortion by using this technology. They put your family, they carry that story for a week. They have got over 1 million, 2 million followers. They create videos, fake ones. Ultimately, you pay, and that's how they earn their living. We are telling them that you cannot earn your living illegally. Speaker, there are people who, you know, go to a site, an accident site, a terrorist site, and they take pictures. Pictures that are not good even for the family and for the children. And they put it in WhatsApp groups. So, Speaker, if you are an administrator of a WhatsApp group and you are watching me, by the time this bill is signed into law, there will be very few administrators of WhatsApp group. There are many, many, many bloggers, Mr. Speaker, who earn their living through these illegal means. Mr. Speaker, we want the social media to thrive, to be very vibrant. We want the main media to be vibrant. We need free society. But that social media, Mr. Speaker, that technology, that phone, that WhatsApp, that Facebook, that Twitter, that Instagram, and many, many other platforms, they must be used in a more responsible way. It must be used for the benefit of given the certificate. Before even I was sworn in, a blogger in my constituency posted, "I am the most unpopular leader in that constituency." So he said, "I have not even been sworn in." So Speaker, I told him, "Don't worry, you live with those ones for the next 5 years." But you know, even if they want to deal with us as leaders, I have no problem. I'm a public figure. But you know, when you involve your family, your brothers, your wife, your children, your mother, your father, Speaker, it becomes a problem. So this law, colleagues, let us fast track it, let us debate it, let us support it, let us look at the offenses, let us add more where we feel it has been left a gap, and at the end of the day, this law exists in the US. This law exists in all the Western countries. It exists in all developed countries. So it's not unique, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, as I beg to move and give to the chair, and this law, Mr. Speaker, also touches on the security sector. And that's why the chair of National Security, Administration of National Security, is here also to contribute, because he also did talk to the security sectors. But the bill belongs to the Ministry of ICT. So, Speaker, we have experts like Honorable Musimba, I think he's here. Yeah, I'm wondering the other member, Honorable Oyotsi, the former Secretary General of ANC. No, but from the party leader, you know, as I talk to the party leaders, I don't talk to small people. The party leader said he's no longer in his party. Barak Muluka is the Secretary General of ANC. So, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Oyotsi was complaining about this bill, and he's not in the House. I hope he will come and raise it. He's an expert in that area. Honorable Musimba, I think, must be around, and he's a member of the committee. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a solution to the social problem. And colleagues, I want to repeat it as I sit. We must protect our children, particularly from child pornography, and we must put codes that people of certain age cannot access certain information and material that is going to destroy their life. So, Speaker, if my 10-year-old child has a phone and he has internet and he Googles nude photos, he will get it. You cannot do that in Dubai. You cannot do that in many countries, even in China, in America, even Rwanda. Even Rwanda, even Uganda, you can do it. So let's protect our family. Let's protect our children. Speaker, I beg to move. And Honorable Speaker, I really want to ask you that after the chair of ICT contributes, because the three of the other chair also played a very big role in terms of the security aspect, Honorable Koinange to be given a priority. I beg to move and ask Honorable Kisang to second.
Honorable Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to second this motion. The background of the motion, the Computer and Cyber Crimes Bill 2017, sponsored by the Leader Majority Party, Honorable Aden Duale, MP, was read a first time on 10th of October 2017 and subsequently referred to the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation for consideration and thereafter to report to the House. And the committee placed an advert in the local dailies and wrote to the key stakeholders, inviting them to submit their views on the bill. Yesterday, Honorable Speaker, I tabled the report. We had several meetings, and the report already is in the House, and I urge members to pick it from the table office so that they may contribute meaningfully. Honorable Speaker, the committee received 13 memorandums and held meetings with the stakeholders who included the Kenya ICT Action Network, KICTANET, the Media Council of Kenya, the Center for Intellectual Property and Information Technology Law, CIPIT, the Communication Authority of Kenya, CAK, The Kenya Private Sector Alliance, sexual undertaking sex with a minor. Forgery of computer data resulting in inauthentic data with the intention that the data be acted upon for legal purposes as if authentic, which is punishable with imposition of a fine not exceeding 10 million shillings or a term of imprisonment not exceeding 5 years or both. We have discussed, we've heard about cyber talking, cyber bullying. Majority of us, all these members, every day, before you sleep, you are here, people are putting very many funny things about you and their lies. But because we are leaders, we don't mind. But you see, how about your family members? How about those who are innocent, civil servants? So we say this is serious offense, punishable by a fine of 20 million Kenya shillings or imprisonment of 10 years or both. Part 2 of the bill regulates investigative procedures. This is where Honorable Koinange is going to dwell on, but the part empowers a police officer with a warrant to search and seize stored data while investigating offenses under the bill. This, of course, the search will be done under a court order, a warrant. The bill further empowers a police officer in special circumstances to enter into premises which he or she suspects an offense under the bill has been or is likely to be committed and take possession of a computer system without warrant. This is a similar case. What happened sometimes 2015, there were some Chinese who set up an office in Runda, and the business was just to make fake credit cards, fake ATMs, and fleecing Kenyans.
Just 1 minute. Are the members who are putting their accounts on interventions? Is that some? Yes, you see, I was wondering what it is the member for Suna wanted to say.
Okay.
Honorable Musimba, you have an intervention?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you. Not to interrupt the chair, Honorable Kisang, but I think, Speaker, I'm noticing a trend from the last house with the clerk's office. You're very clear when I wrote a letter to you, which you acknowledged in plenary.
Sorry, please.
You are very clear when I wrote a letter to your office for your attention about this particular bill. And I followed that letter by instructions to the clerk's office to say that you go before the committee. And I went before that committee. I followed your directive as you're given ably from the floor of the House. And I am disheartened from yesterday, and I really wanted to catch your eye, and I wasn't able to. But the committee has gone ahead, prepared a report, and negated, in line with Standing Order 216, that all members and indeed all representations have to follow. And more importantly, Speaker, your office cannot be demeaned by either the clerk's office or by the conduct of the committee itself. When you express yourself and you say, please go and follow such and such a direction. You have ordered us on the floor of this House. In fact, even today, when the leader of majority consulted Standing Order number 53 and said there's nothing here to be debated, this will be referred and the question will be put at a later date and I appoint a certain time. But you're seeing a trend with the clerk's office of negating members. So, and you're wondering, it hinders our role as of representation for the people out there, especially towards a grave motion or an important motion like this, which is before us, because cybercrime is not an easy thing. And as you rightly directed to that particular committee, and there are issues which are being, and I'm very glad that the Honorable Koinange is.
Well, of course, everybody has a right to present views before a committee of the House, or even not just present views, to appear even before any committee of the House, whether you are a member or not, and participate in the deliberations. The only qualification being that you may not, but if there is voting, you may not be counted for voting. But of course, it's not possible really for me to start following what happens with the letter now, because I indicated that indeed your views should be presented before the committee. So if that has not happened, the only recourse available at this point would be we allow the seconder to finish seconding, and you'll have, Honorable Msimba, the opportunity so that whatever you say about the bill can be recorded, and who knows, perhaps your views might carry the day when it comes to the committee of the whole house. But of course, you have the power to propose amendments to any clause, including the title of the bill, at whatever, at the appropriate time. And indeed, I think nothing is lost, because maybe your contributions, Honorable Msimba, will enrich the bill. And if you have prepared sufficiently, as I normally do, when I identify persons who have really done some research on any matter, I do exercise my discretion to give them more than the 10 minutes allowable. You have seen me do that in the last parliament with regard to the now governor of Vihiga. I have done that numerous occasions with regard to the member for Seme, particularly when it comes to matters health, because I recognize his expertise. And indeed, when they contribute into matters with Honorable Nyikal, the House appreciates what it is that they are saying. And it helps to enrich whatever legislation that the House is doing. And I've also noticed the Honorable Nyikal participates very actively when it comes to the committee of the whole House, which indeed is the time that the law is made. But of course, at second reading, it is good that you make known your views, so that when you propose amendments at the committee of the whole House, people will also remember what you will have said during debate. So at this point, Honorable Msimba, I would just ask you to prepare yourself. We will give you as much time as you require to input into this bill, because we appreciate that you have special knowledge in this area. I think that's the best. We can remember the chairman has got only 30 minutes. We can give you as much as 30 minutes also to enrich the House with your knowledge on these matters of, is it not just matters of cybercrime? It must be computer related, computer and ICT related matters. We do appreciate that you have expertise in this field. But I didn't receive information from the chairperson that the Honorable Osotsi is a member of the committee, and therefore, in fact, I was wondering if he's a member of the committee, he has the opportunity to enrich the bill. And I just saw he has proposed some 1 or 2 minor amendments. So I don't know, maybe his expertise may be contained in the report of the committee. But we'll give you an opportunity, Honorable Msimba, to give you enrich the House and the bill as appropriate, so that in debate you will help the members to understand the areas of your concern and how you'd want the law to be enriched beyond what has come from the leader of majority. This time is to be compensated, Honorable Kisang, so don't worry.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Actually, I had also had a meeting with Honorable Musimba. I called him, we met yesterday, he has appeared in my committee, and we've agreed that the amendments that he has, he can bring them during the committee stage, and he can even give us early enough. So basically, he has not lost anything. We can enrich. I'll summarize, Honorable Speaker, so that at least I can be within the 30 minutes. Part 4 of the bill applies to provisions of Mutual Legal Assistance Act 2011 with specific regard to international cooperation in the investigation and prosecution of computer and cybercrime bill. It specifically provides for cooperation between the Office of the Attorney General as the central authority established to handle these matters. Honorable Speaker, Part 4 is of the bill, clause 46, 42 to 46, contains general provisions including territorial jurisdiction for application of the bill, power of the court to order forfeiture of any items seized under the provisions of this bill. Honorable Speaker, I just want to go briefly through the recommendations, recommended amendments by the committee, which they'll appear on as the committee stage of the bill. As a result of public participation exercise conducted by the committee noted that majority of the submissions focus on the provisions of the bill that seeks to limit fundamental rights and freedoms guaranteed under Article 31 and 33 of the Constitution, e.g. the right to privacy and the right of freedom of expression. Other submissions pointed out to the need to delete some of the provisions under the bill and place them or harmonize them with the existing provisions in other acts of parliament. Pursuant to the submissions of the memoranda and deliberations on the bill, the committee will therefore be moving several amendments to the bill at the committee stage. So this is actually the stage where Honorable Sotsi, who is a member of the committee, if he wants his name to appear basically on the order paper, then he can bring the amendments he wanted, and Honorable Musimba, you're welcome, and any other member, because many of us here are experts. There are also some who are also talking to us from outside. So basically, we need the bill to be enriched. We need this bill to be good so that in case anybody goes to court, the bill, parts of the law will not be nullified. The committee will be proposing to amend clause 2 of the bill to replace the definition of the word authorized person to limit the appointment of the latter to person, that is, law enforcement officer or a cybersecurity expert designated by the cabinet secretary responsible for national security. We anticipate this law is going to be implemented both by the Ministry of ICT and Ministry of National Security. We intend eventually to have maybe 2 or 3 cyber security centers, maybe within DCI, one maybe at Konza, and then maybe another one at the CAK headquarters, so that we can monitor these crimes and even block those that we don't want them to reach to our children. The committee will be proposing also to amend clause 2 of the bill to expand the definition of premises. These are where a law enforcement officer can enter to include a virtual space in which data is maintained, managed, backed up remotely, or made available to users over networks such as cloud. In the present, Mr. Speaker, most data is no longer stored in a computer. Some or most large data is stored in the cloud. So that's why we're including space as part of a premise that an authorized officer can access. The committee also will be proposing to amend clause 2 of the bill to define the term national critical information infrastructure, because most of the stakeholders do not understand what this one means. So we will define it so that it's clear, the clarity comes out, so that at least we know what it is clearly. The committee will also be proposing to amend clause 3 of the bill to clarify that one of the objects of the bill will be to facilitate the prevention, detection, and investigation to privacy, freedom of expression, access to information as guaranteed in our Constitution. Mr. Speaker, the committee will also be proposing to amend clause 12 of the bill to insert a new subclause that will stipulate the extent to which freedom of expression under Article 33 of the Constitution shall be limited in respect of the intentional publication of false, misleading, fictitious data or misinformation in line with the requirements set out under Article 27(4) of the Constitution. The committee will be proposing to insert new clauses after clause 16. This is basically to enhance and enrich on the penalties. The committee will be proposing to delete clause 24 of the bill, which allows for search of premises without a warrant. All the stakeholders complained about this. After lengthy deliberation of the committee, it was felt that unless there is no sufficient justification that exists to allow a search without a warrant, so unless maybe my colleague from security team will tell us if there is any sufficient reason to retain this. Otherwise, we have proposed to delete it. The committee will be proposing to delete also clause 13 on child pornography and instead amend the current section 16 of the Sexual Offences Act to harmonize it with the proposals contained in the bill so that we do not have to duplicate. Under the amendment, the committee further proposes to add a further provision in the Sexual Offences Act to provide for the offenses of sexual communication with a child. So, Honorable Speaker, this bill is very important. I want to urge all the members to go through the report, read the bill. Currently, most countries in the world, Nigeria, South Africa included, Pakistan, USA, United Arab Emirates, UK, all, they already have enacted this bill, and if we do not have this law, we are likely to lose on investors who want to come to our country, but they are not sure because the resources are not safe. Many organizations have lost resources. Banks have lost a lot of money, but no one is willing to maybe declare what they have lost because of client confidentiality. So I urge members, please, I urge you to support this bill so that at least by the coming next month, mid-April, this law is signed into law so that those who are abusing us, those who are putting nude pictures, even of members in the social media, refrain, and they are put into books. Maybe the best place they are supposed to be is in committee or other prisons in the country. With these few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to second and urge my colleagues, if there is any part of the bill that you believe it is offensive, we are willing and we are available so that we can make amendments so that we do a bill that is for posterity. I second, Honorable Speaker.
Honour members, let's be in the House. I propose the question, which is that the Computer and Cybercrimes Bill, National Assembly Bill number 36 of 2017, be now read a second time. There was an indication that the Committee on Administration and National Security also considered this bill. But if the leader of minority desires to contribute, you would take precedence. Okay. Honorable Koinange.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support this motion. Honorable Speaker, the Department of Administration and National Security, which I chair, applauds the process that has been carried by the Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation, and that is a process of analysis and the public participation undertaken by that committee. Honorable Speaker, the committee similarly appreciates the gesture put forward by the committee chairperson inviting myself to present amendments relating to aspects of security touching on the same. Honorable Speaker, the Computer and Cybercrimes Bill 2017, as has been noted by others, seeks to provide for offenses relating to computer system in order to enable timely and effective detection, investigation, and prosecution of computer and cybercrimes in collaboration with other states under mutual legal assistance agreements. Honorable Speaker, I note that this bill creates offenses which are following: unauthorized access of a computer system, unauthorized interference with a computer system, program, or data, unauthorized interception of data to or from a computer system over a telecommunication system, cyber espionage, publishing false misleading, or fictitious data and production or possession of child pornography, regulating the use of internet and the menace of cyber stalking and cyberbullying, to which a good number of members of this distinguished House have fallen victim. And I would like to report, Honorable Speaker, we met yesterday, a number of stakeholders, and we are following tomorrow with some of them with the Director of Criminal Investigation, and most of them, they are convinced that is the lack of law that they are not able to prosecute people who are doing all these menace, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the Committee on Administration and National Security has received submissions by, among others, the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government and the Central Bank of Kenya relating to the implementation of security-related aspects of this bill that include effective investigation, prosecution of offenders under the law. The committee will be proposing to introduce amendments to address cyber terrorism. Honorable Speaker, cyber terrorism is the intentional use of computers, networks, and public internet to cause destruction and harm for personal objectives and even governments. This concept significantly varies from the idea of unauthorized access, unauthorized interference, or unauthorized interceptions of a computer system, program, or data. Honorable Speaker, the committee will also be proposing to introduce amendments to address the use of cryptocurrencies to fund terrorism and other illegal activities such as money laundering as a cybercrime. Honorable Speaker, there are well-documented cases around the world which have demonstrated that while the underlying blockchain technology will be used to set up solutions for society that will be positive and socially revolutionary, there is need for this House, Honorable Speaker, to empower the law enforcement agencies to detect and prevent the unlawful use of cryptocurrencies to facilitate nefarious activities such as money laundering. The committee will further be proposing to introduce amendments to address the use of the dark web and crimeware as a service. Honorable Speaker, the dark web refers to the parts of the internet that are not indexed or searchable by search engines such as Google or Yahoo. There are reports, such as one by the University of Portsmouth, that point to the fact that the dark web has been used for illegal activities such as illegal trade, forums, and media exchange for pedophilia and terrorists. Honorable Speakers, crimeware is a software that operates with limited amount of autonomy to steal confidential, sensitive, corporate information. This information could range from passwords of bank account holders to social account holders, such as those of us who hold Facebook accounts. Honorable Speaker, some of the amendments mentioned by the Committee on Communication, Information, and Innovation point to the use of network monitoring and other forensic tools by law enforcement agencies as being acceptable as evidence admissible by courts of law in Kenya, in line with amendments proposed to clauses 5, 6, 7, 8, 28, and 29 of the bill. Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Administration and National Security will be proposing to introduce amendments to Clause 24 of the bill, so to strengthen the legal framework within terms that do not unnecessarily make the process of conducting effective investigation lengthy, complicated, and unreasonably protracted. The committee will therefore be proposing to amend clauses 23, 24, 25, and 26 relating to the access of warrants, production orders, as well as search and seizure of computer data. Honorable Speaker, I finally note that this bill has been prosecuted through the process of the House with a lot of haste. It would have been my indeed and desire of the Administration and National Security Committee of this House to have interrogated this bill with a bit more scrutiny to ensure that all the salient aspects were captured and regulated with unchecked sanctity. We would therefore, Honorable Speaker, have liked to take time and come up with a watertight bill rather than rush it and leave a lot of gaping holes in this bill. Like Jonas Salk, who dedicated a lot of time to defeat polio, we should be driven by commitment and desire to combat computer and cyber-related crimes, which in any case is mostly international in nature through the global community. Let us all be emotional. Let us be less emotional and more rational in enacting this bill. Let us make a law for posterity, for the current and the future generations of our nation. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to support this motion. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Leader of Minority.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to contribute to the Computer and Cyber Crimes Bill. I'll start by saying that this bill is supposed to provide some legal framework to prevent and control the threat of cybercrime that we see. And this is basically the crimes that we are looking at are those crimes or offenses that are against the computer systems or the offenses that are committed by means or use of computer system. Madam Speaker, I think my colleagues have talked about it, but I want to also add that this country has never had a legal framework to handle this kind of crimes, which has become so severe and so serious, comparable to terrorism. Because the other widespread crime, and the crime that is devastating both to the economy and even to social setup, is cybercrime. Madam Speaker, even though this is more or less an ICT-related bill, but it has the security angle. And that is why, Madam Speaker, to allow the chair of the security also to make his comment to inform the debate. But there are specific offenses that we are going to look at, or crimes that we are going to look at in this bill, one of which is unauthorized access to the system, damage to the computer data or programs, sabotage to hinder functioning of a computer system. Those are some of the things that we are going to look at. And as I said, that it is going to be a landmark for this country for the first time to have a bill or an act of parliament once passed that is going to address the issue of these people who have become so innovative in a negative way to devise systems of committing such kind of crimes. And a lot of computer fraud is happening in this country, and we have to follow other countries of the world which have passed legislations in the recent past to deal with this crime. This crime affects the economy in a big way, Madam Speaker. It affects the e-commerce or electronic commerce, so to speak. It affects trade, and it affects even our well-being as a society. Many countries have attempted to come up with the laws or legislations, and I think it is important that this House will take time to study the comparative jurisdictions and see some of the pitfalls that they went through in passing the various pieces of legislation that they were passing. But, Madam Speaker, I want to mention one of those countries is Nigeria. Nigeria just passed this law, which they call the Cybercrime Act of May 2015. They passed it in 2015. But as we speak, there is a debate that there is need for the Nigerian National Assembly to amend the law. Why? Because this is a very technical area, and I want to ask and encourage the two committees that the general membership of this House may not be in a good position to come up with amendments that are going to enrich this law. It is important that our two committees engage more seriously on this bill, so that when we produce the act, it is going to be useful to us. But my concern is, even if we pass this legislation, is it going to be applied? Is it going to be used? We have passed so many legislations in this country, Madam Speaker, but I'm afraid that they are never applied for the intended purposes. The law enforcers don't use them. I want to give the example of Nigeria, Madam Speaker, why the committees need to be more serious on this bill, that the members, while debating the Cyber Crimes Act of May 2015, most of the members of Parliament exhibited ignorance. And I hope that this August House is not going to be party to that exhibition of ignorance. One of the members, and I want to quote what that member of the Nigerian National Assembly said about hacking of the computers. And he said the following, that the moment somebody has access to your computer, as long as it is not for something illegal or criminal and is not taking your computer away permanently, you cannot say the person has committed an offense. And he went ahead and said, if I pick your computer system and I try to cross-check a file, I do not think it is an offense. Madam Speaker, it has since proved that this member really did not understand the provision that was in the law, and because of such participation, out of ignorance, they ended up amending a very important clause in that particular bill. And so, Madam Speaker, what am I saying in short? That those of us who probably are not well educated in matters ICT, we should try to be a bit cautious and listen to the experts, get to understand their explanation, and then we can make a formed opinion. But, Madam Speaker, what are some of the provisions, basic human rights and the Bill of Rights as provided in the Constitution? The children's rights have featured in this bill, with a provision tightening the noose on online child pornographers. Madam Speaker, I think we will all agree that this is something that is worrying us in this country, the child pornography. We need to support any attempt to deal with it. There is computer forgery and fraud, which is going on, and this is something that affects the banking sector, it affects trade in general, and you would be lucky if you are seated here today and you have not been a victim of computer fraud or forgery. Madam Speaker, this bill will now help us address that issue. The bill has talked about or provided for what is called Ethics and Economic Proceedings Act. I can't remember the title exactly as it is worded, but that particular legislation has a provision for confiscating property acquired through economic crimes. But how much has been really confiscated? How much property has ethics and anti-corruption? Today, the leader of majority has just read to us or placed before this House the quarterly report. But the question I ask myself, whether really this House really needs to even debate that report. Because Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has been a letdown to the people of this country. If there is the reason why corruption is continuing to rise in this country is because of pretending that we have a commission that deals with corruption, and it is not. You ask yourself, even simple cases of fraud, direct cases. I know of many cases in counties where people have stolen money. They have used the same proceeds to acquire property. They don't even hide it. The property, they have developed property within the county, and you can see it. Someone who is earning a salary of 95,000 has a property, has even constructed a hotel worth 100 million, Madam Speaker. In 3 years, you don't even need any more investigation. Really, these are people who just need to be arrested, take away the property, make them suffer, and pay for it. But the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission will never, Madam Speaker, help Kenyans fight this menace called corruption. So I'm not so sure whether we put it in law that, that we would confiscate proceeds of cyber crimes and compensate the victims. I don't know. I'm not sure whether our agencies that are tasked with the responsibility of implementing this will do it. But Madam Speaker, anything good, I know the bill is long overdue. It is important that we have it. It has good provisions in it. I don't even want to go into the details of the same because then I would take the whole afternoon or evening. But any good thing must also have the bad sections in it. And I would tell you that this draft law or this bill, first, it has a provision that outlaws false publications. I know the country, the world today is so concerned with the fake news. It is the in thing. It is what is now being discussed. And probably this bill will help fight this menace. But this idea may be good. But there is a red alert, Madam Speaker, that this offense is similar to the old crime of criminal defamation, which has since been declared unconstitutional. So, Madam Speaker, I want the committee to look at that aspect, that even though that provision is good, it will help fight fake news. But how is it going to affect the fundamental freedoms and our rights? Madam Speaker, Clause 23 of this bill talks about seizure of stored computer data during an investigation. There is a requirement that an investigation officer can seize a computer system during an investigation. The question you want to ask, this is first looks impractical, but more importantly, how is the application going to be checked so that we don't allow the security organs, the police officers, to misuse the same provision in law to punish innocent Kenyans? We have seen many times in this country where good laws have been applied badly or wrongly, where you find a law that had very good intention being applied by security agencies to victimize, punish people who are innocent and are going about their business, their daily business, without any problem. The issue of search warrant, and I'm happy that the chair of the Security Committee has spoken about it, that they are going to propose amendments touching on this, the issue of getting warrants or searching without warrants. You know, Madam Speaker, I don't know why when we are legislating, we tend to imagine that getting a search warrant is such a difficult thing. Getting a search warrant, if you have a case, is so easy and you can do it in a record minutes. Why do we want to make it look like there are things that we need to do which may not require a search warrant? And the end result is that we are going to use the same provision to violate and infringe and interfere with the freedom of Kenyans. Madam Speaker, people who have supported certain provisions in law, thinking that they are good, have ended up being victims of the same. Madam Speaker, you cannot, under Clause 24, where you say that, that you give power to search without a warrant in special circumstances. What is special circumstances? Unless you define concisely in specific terms what is called special circumstance, I would be hesitant to support such a provision in law. Because the moment you allow the security agencies to define for themselves what is a special circumstance, they will just decide that today we are going to raid Mbadi's house because special circumstances have dictated so. So, Madam Speaker, many a times these laws covering on security, crimes, and prevention of the same have always been used to insert provisions that in the long run we end up suffering. Madam Speaker, there is the issue of the clause 27 that provides for expedited preservation and partial disclosure of traffic data for service providers. This requires clarity. You know, we need very clear definition. This bill is lacking in one thing, that given that it is targeting a crime, you need to be very, very specific in defining those specific crimes. I know lawyers like Otienda Molo are here. They will help us appreciate that definition is very important. That a word can be interpreted in many, many ways if it is not properly defined. And in law, you cannot just allow these words to be applied just anyhow. But, Madam Speaker, we need to include in this bill all types of crime, because we don't want to legislate all the time. We want to legislate, but we want to legislate holistically. There are issues that need to be added, and I can see my time is almost running up. We need to add child sex tourism in this act. We need to add online grooming. I'm talking about those crimes that are not covered here, and an unlawful disclosure or obtaining of personal data, liability of legal persons. We need to also define cyber identity theft, and many other things. But finally, Madam Speaker, I want to just conclude that this is a bill that we need to support. Support it so much because it is long overdue. We needed this law early enough to deal with some of the problems that we have gone through. But we have also to be careful and make sure that the product that is going to come out of this house is something that we are going to be proud of for the years to come. Not one where we will be told later, Madam Speaker, I am winding up in 1 second, that we will be told that, but you are in Parliament, when now everybody is shouting that we have passed a bad law, then we go to public rallies. I've seen where we pass laws here, and we are the first one in public rallies condemning how bad that law is. Let us be sure that once we pass this law, we will be proud of it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, I know there is an array of interests on this. We have cybercrime technocrats. We have members of the ICT committee, members of the National Security Committee. Some members have personal accounts of cybercrime harassment. So I'm going to have to balance all those interests and also to balance on both sides. So, and we have enough time to actually ventilate on this. So we should not have any anxiety around the time to speak. We will have enough time for everyone. So on this side, we have Honorable Kipyegon. Ngeno.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to look into this. To also looking and contributing to this particular bill, which is seeking to address the serious question that most members of the public have a problem with. Madam Speaker, I wish to state clearly that I will support, and I want to support it. Madam Speaker, if today the country was to decide to shut down the use of WhatsApp, the use of Facebook, all those, Madam Speaker, I think
this country will go into a crisis. But then, Madam Speaker, we need to understand that although we support the use of cyber, the use of computers, the access to internet, and all that, because nowadays, Madam Speaker, we can't live without them. But we must also understand that however popular some of these undertakings are, they also have criminal tendencies, which must be legislated so that we can also have people who access these cyber activities to stick to what is good and what is good for the country. Madam Speaker, I wish to say that people are worried about hate speech. People are worried about other issues that are in these accounts, or what people do in this particular in Facebook and WhatsApp and all that. Madam Speaker, me, I'm not worried about that because that is part of life. But Madam Speaker, what I'm worried about are a few issues that I would wish to state and also support in this bill. Madam Speaker, the question of access, unauthorized access, is what is actually endangering this particular cyber. Madam Speaker, you know, if we allow unauthorized access, it's like you're allowing people to hack your accounts, either bank accounts, and get your money, allowing people to actually access your private issues. Madam Speaker, I think I support the legislation that will ensure that if there is any unauthorized access to people's accounts anywhere, it should be punished. Madam Speaker, the other issue which also I wish to support is the protection on access to pornographic photos or videos, especially by the young ones. Madam Speaker, if you were to visit most of the cyber cafes in town, anywhere, there is no control. The people who run those particular cyber cafes cannot even control the age of those people who are going to access those computers. Madam Speaker, and the only reason is there are teenagers who will want to access computers, majorly because of maybe making applications to schools or communicating with their brothers and sisters, maybe who are abroad and all that. But then, Madam Speaker, there should be a regulation to ensure that access to pornographic sites is legalized so that these young children cannot be spoiled when they are still very young. Madam Speaker, another issue which I would wish to also support in this particular situation is the money laundering activities, which are also in our systems. Madam Speaker, you know, nowadays you would want to access your account electronically, you want to transfer money electronically, but then there is no serious protection against those people who would want to hack the accounts and immediately transfer other people's money. So, Madam Speaker, I would wish to support by saying that if we were to have strict rules that can protect anybody from accessing other accounts illegally, Madam Speaker, then we will reduce the cyber crime. Madam Speaker, I would also wish to support on matters of security. We must understand that there are some security informations that are within the government. There are security informations also that are within private entities, which cannot necessarily be allowed to be accessed by anybody. Madam Speaker, I support, and especially when I watched yesterday a story in KTN which was talking about the Cambridge Analytica. Madam Speaker, I think that is one of the cyber crimes to have been committed worldwide. Madam Speaker, when you follow that story, you will realize there are so many things which go around in our computers, in our internet, especially during electioneering periods, and several other areas. So, Madam Speaker, the crime Mheshimiwa asking me is when you try to imitate, using computers, to imitate other people and pose them so that people can imagine that is a person who was speaking or that is a person who was addressing certain people or personalities. I think that one is a crime. Madam Speaker, I only wish to say that if we were to generate this law a long time ago, many members of the public will not be suffering from issues like intimidation and issues like faking people's accounts and posting other matters and doing several things. So, Madam Speaker, I wish to support and say that if hacking and cyberbullying are penalized, then I think this country will be having the right or moving in the right direction in terms of electronic use. So, Madam Speaker, I wish to end by saying I know the victims, like I was discussing with my brother, one of the youthful members of this House. I know the victims of this particular law will be young men, because nowadays so many young men have made this their business. You find them mostly in WhatsApp groups. They make money out of it because sometimes they want to discuss several issues. But it is good if we are discussing matters that will help the society move forward. It is good if we are discussing matters that have serious assistance to the youth of this country. But if we are using it to abuse others, if we are using it to extort money from other people, if we are using it to tarnish other people's names, then obviously it loses its meaning. So what I'm only urging our youths is that this law is going to hit hard on you. I want to ask you to start running away from cyber crimes. Let us use our internet for the good purpose, that is to assist you to make ends meet, to assist you move on your life, and to assist also this country move in the right direction. Madam Speaker, I support and I support. Thank you.
The Honorable Dr. Otiende Amolo, member for Arieda.
Madam Speaker, first, there are 4 distinct issues that make the bill of doubtful constitutionality. Madam Speaker, the bill seeks to introduce first the phenomenon of what is called national security. And this it does in section 6.3 and section 7.2. Madam Speaker, members will recall that when we were making the constitution that is now our constitution, there was an attempt to sneak the word national security in Article 24, which was defeated. There is nothing as dangerous as introducing that word and not defining it. This bill introduces that word twice and does not define it. If you leave that word in this bill, it's carte blanche. It authorizes anything to qualify as national security, and we'll all be in problems. Madam Speaker, secondly, this bill at section 12 introduces the offense of publishing false or misleading data or information. The Honorable Mbadi spoke to this. It is true that the High Court has previously declared a similar provision, a comparable provision, unconstitutional, and that is the offense of criminal defamation. That was in the case of Jacqueline Okuta. And it therefore stands to reason that this particular clause would offend Article 32 and Article 33 in terms of freedom of opinion and freedom of expression. Madam Speaker, Section 21 of this bill seeks to do something unconstitutional. It seeks to create additional penalty in terms of any offense in any other law. Then it purports that in this bill now, in addition to any punishment in any other law, then you can also be punished additionally under this bill. That is what we call double jeopardy in law. It is unconstitutional. It offends Article 50, Sub-Article 2(o). Madam Speaker, Section 31 of this bill does something strange. it allows anybody who feels offended to appeal either to the High Court or to the Court of Appeal. Three things about that, Madam Speaker. First of all, it is not necessary to have such provisions in this bill because they're already in the Constitution. Secondly, it excludes what usually is the avenue for challenge. That is what we call judicial review, not appeal. And judicial review is preserved by Article 50, Sub-Article 2Q. But more importantly, Madam Speaker, it strangely seeks to allow somebody to appeal from a magistrate's court to the Court of Appeal. That does not exist in any other legislation. And it does not distinguish whether, therefore, you go to the High Court or to the Court of Appeal. It gives you the discretion to go to either. Such concurrent jurisdiction can create immense confusion. Madam Speaker, with those specific areas of unconstitutionality, I wish to observe that looking at the definition of computer system, looking at the object in Section 3A, and looking at the offense created in Section 4.1, those of us who belong to the NASA coalition and who complained in the Supreme Court on 8th of August, and where the Supreme Court directed that the servers of IBC be opened, and the IBC refused to open, we were able to access the servers of IBC, and we published the results. If this bill was law, we would all be serving a jail term of 5 years with having been fined 5 million shillings. And therefore, being a person who will want to access such a server in future in the unlikely event that the IBC unlawfully refuses or such other entity, I would definitely not want to support such a bill. Madam Speaker, it is also to be noted, specifically, Madam Speaker, there's the question of the penalties. This bill is so heavy on penalties. It creates 17 offenses. And all those offenses, they are the heaviest I've ever seen in any legislation. The jail time ranging from 3 years to 25 years. Fines ranging from 5 million to 25 million. That does not exist anyway, Madam Speaker. As a lawyer who focuses mostly on rights, to create severe penalties is not usually to deter people from that offense. It will only result in circumvention of those offenses. Criminal jurisdiction suggests that if you want to achieve deterrence, you create rational offenses, not outrageously irrational in terms of fines or jail term. Madam Speaker, it is to be noted that Section 13 is a good one. It creates the offense of child pornography. I heard the chair say that they are going to amend it, which is a good thing, because I had observed that while it's a good provision, it has a very strange exclusion in Section 13.2, that it is a defense of a charge under this section if the person establishes that the child pornography was intended for a bona fide scientific research. I could not imagine, Madam Speaker, what bona fide scientific research can there be in child pornography? And definitely, Section 13.2 as proposed is one that needed, it's just bizarre, it needed to be excluded. Madam Speaker, the offense of cyber stalking and cyberbullying in Section 16 is very, very unclear. And in its current forms, unless properly defined, it could include anything, including legitimate criticism. That if somebody contacts you continuously, which could be 2 or 3 times, then that could amount to cyberbullying. So I don't know how even your constituents who call you 2 or 3 times will contact you because they'll be committing a criminal offense. So unless properly redefined, Section 16 stands, is very, very dangerous. Madam Speaker, for those reasons, in its current state, I oppose this bill. It is important to note 2 things, Madam Speaker. One, that the fact that it has been enacted elsewhere, including the United States, does not require us to enact it because they do not have a constitution such as ours. The Kenyan constitution is only like the Kenyan constitution and no other. Secondly, in history past, we had rushed like other countries, led by the US, to pass similar legislation, especially the Prevention of Terrorism Act. All the countries that passed that legislation later ended up in problems. In this country, we had to amend it. In fact, I think we even had to repeal it. So my question, Madam Speaker, is that while the bill is well intended, unless it is properly looked at, it is one that would create more harm than good. And lastly, Madam Speaker, I have heard many members talk about cyberbullying, talk about people accessing their phones and sending all sorts of messages. It will interest members to know that all those issues that appear to concern us are not necessarily stopped by this bill, except the provision of cyberbullying. But cyberbullying is actually distinct and different from what confronts us. We will have to look either at this bill very critically or at any other law if we want to enact legislation that will shield us from all those shenanigans that we spoke about. But to assume that once we pass this bill, our problems, as enunciated by Honorable Chega, are gone, is actually a misnomer. With that, Madam Speaker, I oppose for now.
Very well, Honorable Otiende. Listening to you clearly, I think you might have done a tooth comb analysis of the bill as it is, and I think at this stage of the second reading, we are really all at liberty to raise any issues of concern on the bill, and I can see the chairman taking notes seriously. And I believe you're going to invite Honorable Otiende at some point to even, help in fine-tuning. Because I don't believe that the intention of Honorable Otiende in opposing is to suggest that we throw away the baby with the bathwater. I think we have an opportunity to fine-tune it and introduce any such amendments that may make this otherwise good bill constitutional and proper. On this side, the member for Murang'a County.
And especially, Madam Speaker, when it comes to unauthorized access, I've just learned today there is something called cyber phishing, where somebody goes and gets your information, actually uses even your office, and even accesses to your bank accounts, which is really criminal, and many Kenyans have suffered on this. False publications, Madam Speaker, and I think this is one thing that almost every member of parliament suffers from. Immediately you are elected, the next thing you see is a publication about yourself. They will fish, write about things that really are very painful. They don't care whether you have small children who read, and they really put a lot of things. And there are some gutter presses, and I'm hoping we'll be able to take care of them at this moment when we pass this bill, because a lot of false publication is done and hurts many families in this Republic of Kenya. Madam Speaker, I really support this bill. As you know, I am going through some challenges, and especially with the law enforcers. And one of the things even the members of the Safaricom management raised, they said, even if we pass the complaints, and why they're not able to follow, because the law does not provide what you should do with these people. If you take them to the court, somehow they are released, and the courts don't even know how to do them because there was no existing law to actually punish these criminals. And I think that's why they have taken a holiday, and they have really used and abused the social media. They have abused the use of telephone. And Madam Speaker, I am hoping this bill will come and actually put some of these people into books. I really thank also Honorable Otiende for telling the country that they actually had access to the server. And so if you actually did, this bill is right on time. That is hacking. I don't know whether you want to be the super hacker next time. So we are hoping then you admitted you're a criminal. And it's good for you to know that this is House of Records, and it can be used against you and maybe your party. And you see, for now, we'll not take you seriously because you are friends and you're not part of us. But otherwise, this is something that if you mention something on the floor, because this is the House of Records, it can be used against you. And for advice, Next time, if you cannot table the evidence, please don't do it, even if you deem it. And you can take it up and actually withdraw and apologize. But anyway, the chair maybe didn't capture that. But it is interesting to know, actually, that there are some people who had access to the servers. But Madam Speaker, I really thank you for giving me an opportunity. I don't go into the details because I know when you come to the second reading, we'll be contributing a lot, and especially working with the relevant committees to make this bill reach. It is our responsibility. We have a responsibility. That's why we were sent by our people to come into this house to make laws that will save them from such pains that they go through cyberbullying. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Kitonga Makueni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to comment on this very, very important bill. The first time the Honorable Chege made a personal statement in relation to cyberbullying, among other matters, the House was saying we should wait for this bill and pass it. I want to say up to now, hacking is not a crime as such, and in fact, if you do it for the common good of the people, then it will be deemed that it is proper. So I don't think there is anything the Honorable Otiende is admitting which is wrong. That just amounts to the truth. And when you speak the truth and it's justifiable, then there is no case against it. Madam Speaker, I would like to say this law affects several other laws.
Honorable Gunjuri, are you on a point of order?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to, I had tried to get a point of order when Honorable Otiende Omolo was on the floor, and I've just had the same issue repeated by my friend, Honorable Manzo. I just wanted us to clarify, or maybe they could clarify for us, because some of us are not lawyers, when they say that hacking is not a crime at this moment in time. I want to understand what that means, because I understood Honorable Otiende to be saying that they actually accessed the IEBC servers. That is what he said. Now, Honorable Manzo is telling us that that is not a crime. The little legal knowledge I have tells me that it is a crime. So I was just looking for direction, Madam Speaker, on whether what they're telling us is the truth. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Manzo.
Yes.
I know that your point of order on Honorable Otiende's contribution is overtaken by events. But in terms of definition of whether hacking is a crime or not, I think at this point, let us stick to the contributions on the bill. And the question on what one member means or the other, one point is that we have to be relevant to the issues that are of concern to the bill. And any issue that you mention that is outside of this discussion, I am not going to allow this going forward.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker, but I would like to tell our friend that's why we are making this law now, so that you can make such activities can be a crime. I would just say this law is going to affect several other laws. We've got the Penal Code, which is very old, and by the time it was made, there was no, technology as such, and therefore, there are other acts which are going to be affected, such as the Evidence Act, because the most important part of an issue, whether it's a cyberbullying or any of the cyber crimes, is how you're going to prove it in a court of law, and also whether we are going to have special courts, like the case of anti-corruption or the case of environment, and whether this technology grows on a daily basis. We have to make a law such that even when technology advances, we are able to catch up with the situation. And in fact, when ICT started developing in the country, a study was developed at the University of Nairobi, and one of the courses facilitated was on ICT, which is done by Professor Ben Sianya, who is an expert from Stanford University, where he got his PhD. And America was the first one to advance on these matters. But still, the law gets overtaken by events. So when we make this law, and that's why we are saying at the third reading, we've got to really, really be futuristic and look at all the crimes in this. When it comes to a crime, a punishment, and also the bailing, the bond, because this is going to affect all of us very soon, and it's going to affect our children. In fact, a former member's child was sentenced to 25 years in a certain crime by a court. And you know, methods of appeal, the law remained and the sentence is to remain. And unless now you are forgiven by the Committee on Exercising Power of Mercy, things become very complicated. So when you say for a small crime or an offense under this, you fine someone 25 million shillings or 25 years or both, then we have to think really exactly what we're doing. The other issue is constitutionality. Any law which does not conform to our current constitution immediately becomes null and void. It could be certain sections of that particular law or the whole law. So we have to be careful so that when we enact some of the provisions in this enactment are not beyond our constitution or are not to interfere as our constitution, such that we make a law which is within our constitution. We may make it with emotions and make a law which is not within our constitution. We cannot just copy other countries blindly. We cannot copy the US blindly. The other day you heard the Honorable Dalmas Otieno say, when we copied the American system of pure presidential, we also did not copy the electoral college. And therefore that makes a difference between companies already licensed, like something called Google Earth. A few years ago, you could Google this parliament and you could see the movements and even the cars parked in this parliament. Of course, security issues were raised and the laws were amended globally, such that the pictures of Google Earth, they appear 2 or 3 days thereafter, because you could see what is happening in the Temple of Israel, direct from the Google. And this is part of what is happening. So to what extent does security intermarry with the cyber? You have had even the technology now of drones. You've got even the birds, which look like they are fly birds, but it is actually a drone, and it is actually a weapon of war. It is an insecurity in itself, and it is directed by a computer, and it can be used to assassinate someone. So there are so many issues we need to look in totality, so that where where they are doing this sort of practicals, and where there are science laboratories, where some of these technologies being manufactured. We have very many years to get to that as a country. And I believe soon they will be released to the world. They will be sold to the world. It is a huge business through the cyber forums, through when you access certain materials, like if there is a popular thing happening, anybody who accesses it makes money. There's a huge business involved. There is an issue of taxation. When you are dealing globally, how is Kenya going to benefit with the taxes? When we operate from here, we are also, as a country, losing a lot of taxes in this matter. So there are many issues, Madam Speaker, which we need to look at. The issue of fake news is a big problem in the world now. And it's been discussed in several forums, and a lot of times fake news are released through such forums or mediums. Even there are now electronic newspapers. There are newspapers which just only run on rumors and on fake news, and the people access them, and someone is making money. How do you deal with that? If it is outside the jurisdiction of Kenya, I've seen in this act, what do you do with a crime which is committed in the United States of America by a Kenyan who is here, who hacks systems which are in another country, and hacks banks and is able to access into information or even into money through that? And this is not the end of innovation. Innovation will carry on. There is what is public and what is private, because some information is already in REM or in public. So, Madam Speaker, there are so many other things we need to look at. We need to look at censure. When you seize these materials, who is in custody? We need to train our police. We need to train the judiciary and many other people to be able to catch up with the activities. There is money laundering. There is banks, and now even the SACCOs in the cooperatives. some circles are bigger than banks and are using ICT to do their transaction. The amount of transaction which take place in a day, Madam Speaker, the money transaction, all in this, we need to capture them. I do thank you, Madam Speaker. I will support this bill with amendments at the third reading.
Honorable Ngunjiri, you have suddenly disappeared. Are you still interested in contributing? Okay.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much. I have had the opportunity to read through this bill. And a couple of things stand out, which I am hoping that will be looked at as the bill continues to be developed. The first thing is the name. On the issue, the name, the current name says computers and cyber crimes. And I was thinking that maybe one of the things we need to think about for purposes of expanding the mandate is to think about calling it Cybersecurity and Technology Protection Bill, so that you are now able, because, for example, Mheshimiwa Sabina, when she was talking about the issue of her telephone, her phone being taken control of, or somebody taking her number or a number and using her name, that doesn't fall under cybersecurity or cybercrime, but that's still technology, crime of technology that we are hoping that this bill is going to cure. So one of the things I was hoping we'd be able to do is change the name to something like Cybersecurity and Technology Protection Bill. The other thing is under the definition of the Cabinet Secretary. I see that we have said that we want this bill to be put under the Cabinet Secretary for ICT. And I was proposing that we need to put this bill under the Cabinet Secretary who will be responsible for matters relating to cybercrime and cybersecurity at whatever point. I would also want to suggest that on the issue that there will be need to consider having a national cybersecurity coordination center that brings in multi-stakeholders from various security agencies and the ICT department itself, so that we actually get comprehensive security from that. It is also important for us to think about crimes, or what we will call crimes, because now I have heard we are defining crimes based on how we understand them. But I think we need to think about something called cyber squatting. Cyber squatting is where somebody comes and takes over your identity, for example yours, Madam Speaker, and holds on to it. You know the way people do land. You speculate. You buy land and then you speculate on it. So somebody comes and takes over your identity because you are not on the internet, or you don't have that identity on the internet, and then they force you to buy it back from them if you want to use your original identity. I think it's going to be important for us to think about how to secure people's personal identities from being misused, because the cyberspace is a new space we are all getting into. Some people are getting into it before others. I still know people who do not have WhatsApp on their telephone lines. So if somebody gets onto the internet before you and chooses to take over your entire identity, we do not have a law that stops that from happening. So that would be one of the things I would suggest that to be looked at by this particular bill. We have talked about inappropriate publications. One of the problems that we have with internet right now is that there is no accountability mechanism for whatever you post. As we think about how to make this a comprehensive bill, we need to think about how do we deal with people, how do we hold people accountable for what they post. Whether it is on your own, if you have a Twitter account that has 3 people and you call me names, are you accountable? Can you go and argue that that is your opinion, or is that a public publication that you have done? So it's going to be important for us to think about some of those specifics of when you make a publication, at what point does it become a public publication? I have had people arguing that my Facebook page is my page. So when I post something on it, and it is an opinion, if you take me to court, I can say it was my opinion I was sharing, and I have the right to hold an opinion even though you don't like it. But you're putting this on space that is public. We will need to decide and to define how, at what point, publication becomes public, and how you deal with inappropriate publications. Finally, on the issue of, we have spoken about the issue of the name. I would like to re-emphasize this again. A lot of the crimes we have right now the crimes we're trying, that are making us think about this bill, whether it's cyber terrorism, whether it is cyber crime, whether it is the Nigerian, there's a crime that was actually given a name of Nigeria because they're the ones who used to send you email and tell you that they are stuck somewhere and they want you to send them some money. some of these things, we are going to have a very dynamic, the internet is very dynamic. Our security agencies, our security agents, I do not know whether they are at the same pace. They're able to keep pace with the criminals in the internet. I think we will also need to seriously consider how to set up a specialized force or create a very regular training mechanism of all the developing crimes, because every day somebody is discovering something new. As we were saying, we were reading about Analytica. In another election or in another couple of years, you're going to be thinking about people are always discovering something new to do with the information that is available on the internet. How do you create a law that is flexible enough to keep dealing with everything that comes up on the internet? The internet, as we said, is a dynamic environment. It is growing every day. People are coming out of school and developing programs. We have programs of, like, for example, the M-Pesa program that is very useful to us as Kenyans. It's very easy for somebody else to develop something like that and then use it to con people out of money. At what point in this bill do you think about those emerging crimes? I know we do not legislate we do not anticipate crime, but the problem is that in this particular space, we will seriously need to anticipate all the potential misuse, opportunities for misuse, or at the very least, should have been a joint committee, should have been looked at as a joint committee, but the Speaker directed me and corrected me and said that as members of the National Security Committee, we can attend the ICT hearings. But I think there's still a lot of interlinkages, and we're losing some things if we do not have members of both committees sitting and looking through this bill as it continues to the final stages. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Member for Kathiani.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. Madam Speaker, this is an extremely important bill that is going to set out actually to solve quite a number of issues affecting citizens of this country. From the definition, Madam Speaker, this is an act of parliament that is to provide for offenses relating to computer systems. And Madam Speaker, I actually took opportunity so that I could understand it better and went to look at the definition of computer systems. And within that definition, I realized that physical or virtual devices, including mobile devices, are actually part and parcel of computer systems. So, Madam Speaker, this is something that is extremely important because you all know that almost all Kenyans own a mobile phone, and therefore they are part and parcel of the system that we are talking about. Madam Speaker, globalization has generally led to a lot of development, and we all understand that ICT plays a very key role in it, and it is growing faster than a lot of the users can understand how to interpret and how to use it. And that is why you find a lot of times we have mobile phones, and most of the features in the mobile phones, we don't even know how to use them. Those that have smartphones have got a lot of apps that they don't even know, they don't even use. So basically, it is growing too fast. And so some people have taken advantage, some unscrupulous people have taken advantage of these fast changes in technology to be able to do things that we need to address in this bill. So, Madam Speaker, I will only talk about the offenses that I've seen in this. And I think I've listened to my colleagues. I've listened to a colleague who said that he feels that the offenses are extremely high. I think maybe even these penalties can be increased if it's possible. Because, Madam Speaker, these are issues that are affecting too many people and in very, very nasty ways. Madam Speaker, Clause 4 is an offense on unauthorized access. And, Madam Speaker, if you look at that, in the last election, IBC's chairman, Wafula Chebukati himself, stated that his password was used, and therefore there were people that had unauthorized access to the servers. And because of that, there was a disputed election that led to a lot of lives being lost. Some of us, personally, I'm a victim of the violence that came out of these last disputed elections. And so I think it is important that we address these issues. Madam Speaker, someone has mentioned the access that NASA had to the servers, but I think it was probably in confirmation or conforming to what the Supreme Court President himself said when they said that the servers should be accessed. Madam Speaker, clause number 12 talks about false publication. And
my interpretation, my understanding is those things that are put out there that are not true about different people. And Madam Speaker, I have been a victim of this. And a lot of members, even those who are new, will end up being victims of this if we don't pass this bill. This is what happened to me. I saw within one of the groups, an individual kept criticizing the projects that I was doing. In fact, to the point where they implied that I had stolen money. Some of the projects that were being named were not even funded under CDF. Some were national government, some of them had been funded by Latif in the previous dispensation. But this person kept continuously repeating and saying that this money was lost here, money was lost there. I attempted to answer their questions. It reached a point where I had to call the person. Madam Speaker, it was interesting. And that is how I discovered that this is actually blackmail. When the person told me that they are trying to find out the things I have been doing so that they can do a magazine for the constituency. And so I realized that some of these things are actually being used so that they can take money out of members. A lot of times, the groups that we have on WhatsApp, the criticism that is leveled against leaders is not because there is something wrong leaders have done. It is simply because somebody wants to be paid to stop saying what they are saying. And sometimes they make a lot of noise so that you realize that these people are actually available and they can be used. They are actually guns for hire. And Madam Speaker, if we don't enforce this and we don't make it very prohibitive, they will continue doing that to us. And I will tell you, members, that actually there are people who lose their political offices and political seats within 5 years just because some bloggers have decided to make you a victim and continuously talk about you. Now, Madam Speaker, I also noted that within my first term that the National Audit Office has these preliminary reports that they do. They come to your constituency, study what goes on there, and then they write a preliminary report, which is basically meant to be for the fund account managers to answer. And somehow, this information leaks to these bloggers. And even when there is a query like how come this dome is being built for 2 years, and that is something that can be answered. As long as it is in a Kenao report, somebody will put it out there and imply that that money is in your pocket. Yet, clearly, the report says this was put up, but it is not finished. It wasn't finished because you probably didn't provide enough funds, and you provide funds in another year. So, Madam Speaker, it is important that as members of this House, we ensure that we deal with these issues. I have seen photographs, Madam Speaker, that go on social media depicting members, depicting leaders. And many times these are actually, they call them Photoshop. They are not realistic. People in compromising situations, but then they change the face to look like it belongs to someone that the public recognizes. Madam Speaker, we must put a stop to this, and I think this bill will go a very, very long way to help us to do that. Madam Speaker, Clause 15 talks about computer fraud. Now, Madam Speaker, previously, and I think I've been a victim of this, our mobile telephone, mobile providers, service providers would allow certain people access to your phones, and they would send you messages, and then they would tell you that if you want us to stop sending messages, please send an SMS saying stop. Now, I didn't ask you to start in the first place. Now, you're telling me to stop. But every message that comes through, Madam Speaker, takes away money from our mobile phones, from our airtime, from our bundles. So these are the issues that need to be addressed by this bill. Madam Speaker, clause number 16 talks about cyber stalking and cyber bullying. And Madam Speaker, I think that one has been ably talked about by many of my colleagues, because clearly people are actually using technology to bully others. And we have an opportunity as a House to put a stop to it. We have an opportunity to ensure that those people that think they're sharper than us in use of technology, or probably are idle, Madam Speaker, we need to put a stop to it, and we need to fight them. And this is the only way, this is the only access that we can be able to reach them and deal with that. Finally, as a caution, members, let us be careful not to put personal information on mobiles and on Facebook. Many times we've seen people that get attacked or their homes get raided. And
when you walk around the duty-free shops around the world, you find very interesting gadgets, which in those countries, maybe they are legal, they are okay. But as soon as you bring them to our country, you can be told that this gadget is illegal. Maybe it interferes with system X or Y. So I think in terms of the bill, what the committee or the experts who are helping to shape this bill should try to put more details as they continue to craft this bill. On the area of, I think, punishment, I think it has been said by the speakers before me, we need to try to relate it to other jurisdictions. That what is the offense if this or that person does this? Because the relativity is important because of standards and for the purposes of enforcement. Mr. Speaker, the good part of this bill also, currently, we can all read government documents, whether classified, confidential, or even secret, on the internet or even on WhatsApp. I think that in itself is criminal. It jeopardizes the security of the state, or even sometimes the security of individuals. So for that reason, I think those working in government in particular, who have access to classified information through this bill, they must be warned that there is a law. Mr. Speaker, on the area of child pornography, I think in the West currently, the punishment is very serious. That individuals in their 70s or 80s are being caught and taken to court many years after maybe they have retired from their jobs, following a sort of clear forensic audit to establish that they were doing something wrong at some point in their engagement in public life. So for that reason, I think we cannot in any way, as the bill appears to state, to give any leeway on child pornography. It is criminalized all over the world, and Kenya should not try to reduce the bar of where the international system has placed it. Mr. Speaker, in the area of international cooperation, I think this is a very interesting area that we need to relook at it critically. We have the ICC cases that still lingers behind us. There's the rendezvous of some Kenyans to the island of Gansi because of tax evasion. We must consider the area of criminal jurisdiction, or else I think it's like we are crafting a law that at some point in time we try to defend it. Mr. Speaker, the WikiLeaks, the famous WikiLeaks, I think fall in this category. And if we pass this law, or if we pass this bill, at least to start with, as a country, we have something to hang our hats on so that we can craft it better in the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Yes, I can tell that the interest is very clear on this bill, and we are going to have enough time on this bill. We're going to have enough time on this bill, and I can tell the interest. I will distribute fairly the opportunities to speak to this very important bill. Honorable Wamushomba Gathoni.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Finally, even members here are laughing because I've been wondering how long am I going to wait to give this very energizing debate? Because I'm one of the victims that have really suffered out of what we call cyber molestation, cyber bullying, and cyber stalking, where people follow you, follow how you smile and how you laugh, and make a story out of the laughter. Sung and supported by our able Vice Chair, Bwana GK, Mheshimiwa, and I'm glad that we were able to make the milestones that we have today. We have suffered for a long time because we were operating in an open space without a clear guideline and framework on how to handle some of these things that concerns computer networking, computer data processing, digital appliances, the connectivity, and the processing of information that ends up servicing a lot of sector in this country. Computer and cybercrime bill is an idea long, long overdue. With increased use of computers and digital appliances, all interconnected to make sure that we operate our economy. There is a dire need for a legal framework to guide the use of computer systems in Kenya, data management, a framework to give us guidelines to the lines of misuse of computer systems and create remedies for offenses emanating from the same. In the recent past, the economy of Kenya, which is one of the fast-growing economies in Africa, has embraced the use of computer systems in almost every sector, from medical world, transportation, security, communications, advertising, financial, and research. It is therefore very risky for an economy like Kenyan to operate without a clear legal framework to govern the operations and exchange of data. Socially, I must say that data and information development and sharing has been a thorn in the flesh. The emergence of social media has created a loophole for total misuse of computer systems through cyberbullying, cyber molestation, cyber stalking, which as a lawmaker, I have been a victim, like I had said. I therefore would want to stand and support the passing of this bill with a realization of the risks that I have mentioned so that we can be able to provide remedies that I had also mentioned. But I'm also keen to make sure that we create a framework to maintain the confidentiality of information that we are processing in all those sectors. We protect data and create a mutual legal agreement with all other nations that we are operating with so that we can have a clear flow of information and operations around the issues of computers and data systems. More specifically, I'm keen to see a bill that will offer remedies and minimize cases of sexual harassment and domestic violence perpetrated by the use of computer systems. Mr. Speaker, when I was contributing in the committee, in the ICT committee, I cited an incident which I would want to cite, that I have had an opportunity to work with members of public, and I've had an opportunity to reconcile families using radio. And a lot of cases that are presented to myself are cases where a husband comes and talks about infidelity that has been processed through use of computer systems and such like appliances that relates to computer. And it is very, very sad for me to quote and say that most of those cases that were presented to me are cases that are emanating from broken families, domestic violence, and such like social issues that make or disintegrate our social networks. As a parent, I am more excited to note that this bill has facilitated an opportunity for us to protect our children from child pornography, and has provided a clear roadmap on remedies to protect our naive children from unvetted material that lure them into absurd religious practices and immoral behaviors. And therefore, I rise to support this motion so that this bill can actually materialize and become a law that can be able to guide us on how to run our economy. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, before I get to my left, because there are not as many, and I will indeed go to my left, allow me to give one or two people, members, honorable members, or still on my right. And I take note of Honorable Musimba, and I take note of what the Speaker mentioned about your expertise around this, and your interest to speak to it. Honorable Gideon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I rise to support this bill because of one thing. Our society needs orientation and protection. And I don't support cyberbullying. I don't support cyber stalking. I don't support computer fraud. I don't support computer forgery. I don't support false publication, and I don't support child pornography. It is high time that we as a country stand up and protect our society. I fear for my generation. The moment this is passed as a bill, as a law, within the first 24 hours, many of the young people will be arrested because of so many reasons related to this. Because there are so many young people who practice this for a long time. You find them with fake Facebook accounts, pseudo Twitter accounts, busy abusing one another, left, right, and center, making life for other people completely difficult. Now is the time to become champion of media, literacy, and share responsibly. Before sharing, we have to stop. Reflect on what we share, verify before we share, because we need facts from friction as a society. Spread of false information has negative impact on people's life and cause unnecessary confusion and hardship. Stopping this behavior is everyone's responsibility. And since I know it's my generation that is going to suffer most, I still urge that as a government, we will need training and capacity building so that not only the government alone, but other stakeholders should conduct at least aggressive nationwide sensitization program lasting at least for a year and electronic evidence. This is a good bill. It's a pace setter, and it will take Kenya to a unique space whereby as a society, a young person will be able to grow up in a safe environment with less threats and enable everyone, every family, to forge ahead and focus on development rather than threats to their family. So I support the motion.
Honorable Mary. Honorable
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this bill. Mr. Speaker, this bill has come at the right time, in the sense that this is the bill that is going to actually move with the tide of the time. Mr. Speaker, if you look at what the bill proposes to do is, first of all, our bank accounts are easily invaded by fraudsters who hack the computers, the ATMs, and the accounts. Mr. Speaker, if you look at last year's report on cybercrime, banks lost billions of shillings, and a number of these criminals went scot-free. Banks paid a lot of money to individuals who actually invade accounts of innocent citizens. Apart from that, Mr. Speaker, you'll realize that this bill is going to address issues of unauthorized access. Last week, in this House, Mr. Speaker, a number of members were actually, most of their accounts, the Google accounts, the Gmail account, and all these were invaded or were actually accessed by individuals who had pseudonyms and actually carried crimes in the names of members of parliament. They were making calls in the names of members and soliciting for funds or money in the name of members. I saw the presentation by the NIS and the Directorate of Criminal Investigation. It was as if there was actually desperation. Everyone was helpless. I checked that this bill is actually going to cure a number of these issues. Apart from unauthorized access, Mr. Speaker, you'll realize that issues that are actually or private in nature, the Photoshop, that actually a number of the young men and young women actually invade the social media and use pseudonyms to pervert the names of individuals. This bill is actually going to look into it. I also want to talk, Mr. Speaker, about false information, false data. I would say that information that affects us in terms of development. You look at the Facebook, for instance. You look at the social, the WhatsApp, the Twitter, and all this. It is actually a room where rumors, innuendos are actually propagated against individuals. To an extent that even normal beings, even normal citizens, will always say this has been in the social media. What is it? Yet it is actually false. Mr. Speaker, we have individuals in the society who actually create, they create accounts, even for leaders. Even I remember one instance where our Excellency the President complained because one individual actually used or hacked into his account and abused even the top leaders of this republic. Mr. Speaker, I think this is the time when we need to learn from other democracies, other nations, how they have been able to manage the cyber on the computer systems. Apart from that, Mr. Speaker, you'll realize that there is publication, production, and possession of illicit pornography, child pornography, pedophilia, for example. Pornography has become a serious problem, not only in this country, but across the world, where every other time, nude photos, nude pictures are sent with a lot of impunity, and to anybody, either sent to any other type of group, Mr. Speaker. And if we are going to introduce this particular bill, it is going to curb that, and it's going to restore our morality, our values. Mr. Speaker, if you look at some countries, especially the Islamic nations, this kind of pornography is not allowed. I don't know why in this nation where there is no order. Every other time anyone can send bad things across the net, it can send nude pictures across the net, and this bill is going to cure that. In fact, I had one of the honorable members talking about the fines and even the penalty, which is actually given to the criminals. Some of these penalties are even less, given the names, the laws of integrity of individuals. In fact, if some of the individuals who have been mentioned to have actually been peddling rumors, innuendos, and all this are actually punished by paying 2 million, 3 million, it is not going to pay for the reputation of an individual. That is actually very less. So I want to say that, Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this bill, in the sense that this bill is going to bring order. Earlier on, before the advent of the internet, the computers, and the web, crimes were actually limited to the physical. But currently, you will realize that there are a number of criminal cases that go scot-free. I would look at a case where one member has talked about during the campaign period, and even before that, where young men or young women would actually come up with information that is false, that is misleading, that is character assassinating individuals. And every other time, you will not have anything to pin them down. What you will only be hoping is only to keep silent. And I think this is time, I want to urge the honorable members and the honorable House that we pass this bill. However, there are certain reservations that I have noted, and I think the chair of the committee is here, which we're able to note them down so that we pass it with a few amendments. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, on the top of the list and from my left, Honorable Mure Mutinda, member for Matunguru.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was wondering whether the cyber crime is going on in the House. Honorable Speaker, I think it's high time we understand where we are sitting from and where we are coming from. And I want to thank Honorable Kisang for the good job of work of the committee you have done. And on the onset, I want to say, Mr. Speaker, is that we are going to support this bill without any reservation somewhere, because we need to have a bill which is very constitutional. First and foremost, Mr. Speaker, as you have heard from the speakers who have spoken before me, there are quite a number of issues which we need to address. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say very clearly that during the third reading and during the interaction with the committee, we must fine-tune this bill for the prosperity of the young people and the nation at large. Mr. Speaker, I've looked at quite a number of issues. You look at Chapter 12, forced publication. We are putting it in a very general and intent way. We need to be very specific, and we need to be very clear on what we intend to achieve with this bill, Mr. Speaker. And I believe that we need to expound Chapter 12 to make sure that we do not allow any false publication in this country and anybody to purport to deal with Kenyans at any given time, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know it's in public domain. We have seen what the company in UK did during election, which is completely unacceptable to a society where democracy must prevail, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Chapter 14 is talking about the computer forgery. And I want to urge the chair, we need to relook at it, because we are talking about computer forgery. And members, we need to understand this is being done day in, day out. Mr. Speaker, I want to confirm to this House, only 2 weeks ago I received an email which has been purported to be generated from Kenya Power and giving a contract and an agreement for us to, for me to contribute on behalf of the constituency for transformers. But whoever sent it, he must have been a very big idiot, because he forgot that I'm serving my third term in my second term in this House. And Mr. Speaker, when we put up the list of transformers, we were very clear on how we need to put this. Mr. Speaker, chapter 14, and the chair, you need to listen very clearly. We need to expound what means by computer forgery, because I've not seen anywhere else you are looking at the mobile phones, the cybers, and the other gadgets being used to do this. So we must be holistic on what we are calling for, computer forgery, direct or indirect. We must deal with it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you heard Honorable Amolo Otiende talk about the penalties. For me, we should not be making laws because we need to punish people. We also need to make this law applicable to the society for people to understand they need to live responsible. But I will agree, whereby we have a responsible society, we must have very clear, punishable penalties, Mr. Speaker. Because if we leave it open for the judiciary to make the kind of ruling they want to make, Mr. Speaker, I want to tell you, even the cybercrime will get itself to judiciary. And even the ruling which will come out of the judiciary might not reflect the will and the purpose to provide judicial solution on the issues of cybercrime. So, Mr. Speaker, on chapter 27, clause 27, we are saying where a police officer or authorized person has responsible ground to believe, Mr. Speaker, you know the kind of the police force we have in this country. Can you imagine, Mr. Speaker, a police officer believes that you are a cybercrime officer, and then he comes to you, he wants to deal with your office, he wants to get into your office. Mr. Speaker, we must be very clear when person comes to investigate a cybercrime. Because we have heard in from this house, Mr. Speaker, cybercrime is also infringing into the rights of individuals. So those police officers and authorized people must have very clear, and I want to repeat this, underline it, Mr. Speaker, they must have a clear authority to perform their duty so that we don't get ourselves in circles of cases. And Mr. Speaker, we are in a society whereby anything happens and you feel aggrieved, you are allowed through our constitution to move to court. So, Mr. Speaker, I would wish the committee to look on chapter 27. Let's be specific and let's be real to the reality. Chapter 29, Mr. Speaker, talks about interpretation of content and data. Mr. Speaker, and I know Honorable Musimba will agree with me, it's not all of us who have the expertise to interpret data when it's on its own original form, act or stored in a cloud somewhere. Mr. Speaker, on this clause, we need to bring in the technical expertise. And I want to believe some of these clauses, Mr. Speaker, once we pass this bill, we must have a very detailed technical experts to sit down, evaluate the clauses, and give guidance and policies on how the clauses will be implemented. Mr. Speaker, sometimes I'm in pain. We do very good laws. Kenya is not short of laws. The only problem we have in Kenya is how to implement the laws. Because somebody somewhere wants to hide within the other law to make sure that it does not happen. So, Mr. Speaker, chapter 29, we need to look at it. I know it has several issues put together, but we need to go to the detail, especially on the issues of interpreting whatever is stored up there on the cloud. Mr. Speaker, obstruction and abuse, chapter 30. Same scenarios. A police officer, authorized person who misused the exercise of power under this part committed as an offense is liable on conviction to fine not exceeding 5 million. Mr. Speaker, can you imagine? Now we are making law to arrest who has come to arrest the criminal. Am I correct? Mr. Speaker, we need to relook on some of these clauses because at the end of the day, at what point do we determine the police officer, the authorized person, has over-exercised his powers, has misused his power. So that's why I'm saying a lot of clear guideline policy to manage and implement this bill is required. Mr. Speaker, we are talking of the central authority. For me, it's real. But do we need to rely on the central authority to operationalize this bill? My answer is no. We need to think outside the box to make sure that we have a clear direction on how to make sure that all what is contained on this bill, for the success to deal with the criminals, it is operationalized, Mr. Speaker. So I would wish to request the committee to relook. Do we need to rely on the central authority online? Please, no, Mr. Speaker. As I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I want to say this bill is extremely timely, but we should not be in a hurry to pass it to please some people. Let's do the correct thing as a House. Let's make sure that we go through it through a committee. Let's make sure that, Mr. Speaker, when we are coming to the third reading, members have interacted with this bill in totality, experts have interacted with this bill in totality, and we make sure that we don't leave any loophole on this particular bill, because the current state of this nation lies under the menace of criminal hiding behind cybercrime. I support, Mr. Speaker, with amendment. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Shamala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this bill with certain amendments. I wish to address the issue of a scourge that is spreading through this country, a vice. It is actually destroying the social fabric of this country. It has become a national iniquity. Indeed, it is so closely related to drugs. And I state this, Mr. Speaker, sir, because it is known that what is happening in this country is that a generation is growing up who believe that pornography is a natural act of sex, who, in order to perform these vile acts that they see that are available on the internet, have to take drugs. They engage in all-night orgies, in private residences, in homes in Kenya, in Nairobi, more so in the urban areas. This, Mr. Speaker, sir, is not normal behavior and is being influenced by access to the internet. Considered opinion that the committee does take into consideration that firewalls be set up to stop the access of pornography, not simply on issues related to child pornography, but pornography at large. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, sir, I support.
I know the President, Honorable Musimba, I know and it had been indicated you are the expert. I'm just deferring, giving you an opportunity so that you hear 2-3 other members, so that then you are able to, in a more comprehensive way, do your submissions. Honorable Maritim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance to support this bill. Before I contribute, I want to say I'm the latest victim of cybercrime, computer and cybercrime. Mr. Speaker, lately when I'm going home, I have to go through a supermarket to buy ice cream and chocolate for my wife, just to assure her that indeed she's still the love of my life. Because the kind of confusion, the kind of mental torture that she has had to go through lately because of false publication is way too much. There is nothing that is disturbing like waking up in the morning to 1,000 notifications in Facebook. People, posting lies about others in social media. It is totally unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, this computer and cybercrime bill is going to solve half of our problems. In as much as we support freedom of expression, freedom of speech, it has to come along with responsibility. I want to challenge my youth. I want to challenge those who are using social media that before you click send anything, ask yourself 4 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it going to assist anyone? In the event that you are cornered, are you in position to substantiate? If any of those is negative, you have to drop it like a hot potato. Mr. Speaker, there is cyber stalking and cyberbullying. Most of the members here are victims of the same, where guys are extorting money from us. You know, they come up with funny stories, send us messages asking for money so that they do not post the same. By passing this bill, we are going to net them. We want to support our youth. We know they are creative. We know they are hardworking, but they have to use internet appropriately. Mr. Speaker, I also need to warn group admins for various social media. Clause 17 is coming for you. They are seriously aiding and abetting commissioning of this crime. If you are an admin of whatever social platform, ensure you have ground rules. Ensure you put teeth into your rules. Because by the end of the day, we are coming for you. We know of guys who are posting using fake accounts, pseudo accounts, attacking leaders, attacking persons. It is wrong, and it has to come to an end. Members have talked of the penalty, talking of 3 to 25 years. A penalty of 25 million. To me, that is less. The kind of damage that these youths are causing. Some of us have struggled so much to build our reputation, just for someone to go sit somewhere close to our Wi-Fi, to compose, a false message circulated so that they can damage our reputation. It is completely unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support. A perfect enabler of this bill are the police. Currently, with technology, crime rate is changing. I want to say we are going to work closely with security team to ensure they are equipped with the necessary skills, equipped with the necessary tools for investigation and even getting to arrest those personalities. In that connection, the other day, I saw a comment from National Police Service Commission talking of they are going to reduce salaries for some officers who are advancing, their education. To me, that is wrong. We need learned fellows. We need guys to go out and study on several methodologies on how to arrest the cybercrime and computer and cybercrime offenses. We need this bill, and it is my biggest plea to the members that let us support this bill. Otherwise, we are going to support our youth. We want them to use internet, but use it responsibly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Mboro, Mwangi Mboro.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity to support this bill. Serious fines. That is why we had to give the judge the discretion of saying these are personal false information. There's a corporate one that is affecting millions of shillings, and we had to cater for it. We are looking at cyber espionage. The other day, on 14th of March this month, you saw the Business Daily publishing that Kenya, we are under threat. There is someone who has been operating in Kenya financials correctly. Why? Every day, banks are losing billions of shillings. And the moment they want to publish that, the public may run away from the bank for the fear of its collapse. But if we have clear laws, every person who is intending to rob these banks through cybercrime, there is a deterrent, and your money can be taken back by the bank. We have to look at all these things. We have to look at serious, critical information infrastructure. The other day, we had people saying that they can get into a system of IBC. We have to protect these serious, critical informational infrastructures so that no one can even dare or think. We have to protect their confidentiality, their integrity, so that when you talk about you have information from this system, then you can substantiate where it comes from. We have to look at e-citizen. In Kenya, we are going digital every day. People are stealing from e-citizen. People are stealing from IFMIS, which are government projects to ease the life of Kenyans. If we don't have laws to protect this, then where are we going? We have to do a good law, and that is why the cyber crime and computer and cyber crime bill is on the floor. We are talking about clause 12. We considered the issue of freedom of expression, and we had to consider Article 24 again, Section 2, to cover Section 33 of the Constitution. So we'll put an amendment there so that it is in tandem with the Constitution. So we are listening to everybody, and we are taking those notes so that when we go back, we'll put some serious amendments so that this bill can come out as good as it can be for the nation and for the prosperity of this country. Every part of this bill, we are looking at facilitation of international cooperation. We don't want someone again today to say that I have set base, my hacking system is in Tanzania. Will this bill create a situation where we can cooperate with Tanzania to get you, so that you don't operate an illegal computer system in Tanzania, so that you can deliver fake news to Kenyans using your illegal system. And these are things that are happening. People are setting fake things. There is something we call cyber spoofing, where people are masquerading like the real people. You find a guy, it is a very serious crime in Pakistan, and they have a very serious law for it. In Kenya, you find someone creating your Facebook account. He'll create it with your name, and it will appear like it was you who created it. And he'll be posting like, I have decided not to vie again in Larry constituency. And everybody else will take that news as true. We must cover these things. As my friend Silvanos was talking about Maritime, he was talking about the way he was maligned. During my campaign, a serious mention was put on Facebook all over that I have another wife in Molo, and I had died in Molo, and seriously be told, I don't even have a relative there. Then, how do we take care of these people? How do we take care of these young boys who one day, he's on the street or he's just there at the shopping center in the village, he wakes up and says, my MP has stolen 20 acres of land near my house. How do we take care of those people? How do we take care of those people who say that someone was found in Mombasa with someone's wife? How do we take care of them? Yes, I understand we must guard the Constitution. We must guard freedoms. Everybody's freedoms. But freedoms must come with responsibility. And those responsibilities must be catered for in this bill. I stand and I support, and thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, we have to move this way, really. This is on my left. Honorable Nzioka Kivasu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. I rise on the onset to support the bill on computer and cyber crimes. This is a bill that I have been a member of the committee to look into. We have also been able to deliberate fully on it, and we have also gotten memoranda from members of public, institutional stakeholders involved in the ICT sector. And I urge the members to look at the recommendations that were tabled in line with the bill that is before us. Mr. Speaker, sir, Clause 3 of the bill outlines the objects of this bill and looks at the protection of the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of computer systems. At the same time, it looks at prevention of unlawful use of computer systems, looks at the facilitation of the investigation and prosecution of the same,
and looks at the facilitation of the international cooperation. Mr. Speaker, sir, the bill provides for a law that deals with the computer systems and cybercrime to help curb the increasing cyber attacks in Kenya. This is a concern to all of us, and the bill is coming at the right time. Mr. Speaker, sir, equally the bill provides for a legal framework that define and detail conditions for prosecution of the same. Mr. Speaker, sir, the three items in consideration on the offenses, investigation procedures, and international cooperation are well spelled out in the bill and gives enforcement officers the power to detect, investigate, and protection of digital platforms to help reduce on computer and internet-enabled crimes, which we are already talking about in the bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, every institution in the country is having computer systems which are supposed to be protected, and every institution is supposed to guard the intrusion on those systems. The bill clearly stipulates an authorized disclosure of passwords and access codes. Many times in these institutions, the persons who disclose these passwords go scot-free. This bill confines that disclosure to be a criminal offense. When those accesses are already given out and the people access the computer systems, programs, or data and infringe the security measures of those institutions, equally those individuals commit an offense. On interception, Mr. Speaker, sir, many times, especially with the current technology, people are in a position to intercept intentionally and without authorization information either to computer systems or from computer systems through use of the telecommunication networks. This is well criminalized in the bill. When we talk about cyber espionage or spying, many times you are having individuals who keep on obtaining, possessing, or communicating intentionally or unlawfully information without our permission. This has been a concern to many of the members of this House, where information is obtained from whichever circle and is used to defame or malign the members of Parliament. On the false and misleading information, Mr. Speaker, sir, Article 3 is very clear on the freedom of expression. But the 3 subsection 2 does not extend to propaganda, does not extend to incitement, does not extend to hate speech, equally trolling. So there is need to curb the spread of either disinformation or misinformation of this information through the internet platforms. We need to be guarded against this email phishing. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is need to support this Computer and Cybercrime Bill 2017 because we need to tackle the computer and the cybercrime aspects and help improve our digital economy. We are having the digital economy affected when people shy away from the use of the technology, so that if this bill goes through, my expectation is the economy, the digital economy within the country is bound to thrive because the fear will have gone off. 3 things which I need to talk about, Mr. Speaker. One is on cyber extortion. We have been extorted heavily, and this comes from one, there is what we call the denial of service threats. Somebody gets into your accounts tries to deny you a particular service and later comes in and says, fine, if you want me to restore this service, let me have this or that. So they are usually doing it to gain some money, and if you give them, then they stop it. So that kind of action, we need to stop it, and we can only stop it through this bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, cyber terrorism is becoming a concern. We have, through online recruitment, we have also online funding, we have planning and spoofing, where people exaggerate on certain information. Even we have government threats, bomb attacks through the same message. And this bill equally expounds on how we can tackle some of these online issues of recruitment and funding. At the same time, we have been having fraud and financial crimes, especially on bank fraud, money transfer crimes. Kenya is thriving very well with M-Pesa, and through the M-Pesa, many of us, I know we have lost a lot of money from some of these frauds, either through being cheated or being coerced, only to realize you have really lost that money. Mr. Speaker, sir, Section 2 of the bill talks about the investigative procedures. Our recommendations talk about the need to have a cyber crime unit that is going to help in the planning, coordination, and execution of the prosecution issues for us to be able to help with the bill being.
Yes, Honorable, on top of the list, Honorable Toek Kamuren.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mine is also to join my colleagues to say that this bill has just come at the right time, Mr. Speaker, sir. The bill is very, very important. The only thing I can say about this bill is that it should cover a very wide area. With the areas, the sectors now in Kenya, as we all know, we are undergoing a massive use of computerization. We have the lands which are doing a lot of digitization. We have the universities or all the learning institutions, they're also undergoing massive use of computers in their systems. And we all know that when it comes to the world of commerce, there's also a lot of use of computers to enable the business of commerce. If you look at the issue of commerce, we are dealing with money transfers, M-Pesa, and other types of ways in which money is being transferred. If you look at the academic world, we are doing a lot of, people are doing research. Very important researches are being done, publications are being done, and we also know that people tend to do a lot of plagiarism. And so this bill, in my own view, should be really wide. We should not really restrict it to a very narrow area. We know the social media is really a pain. Some of us also are victims of the many, many things which they are doing, which are being written in the social media, the WhatsApps, the chats, the Telegraph, the Instagrams, the Facebook. People are actually, although it's actually a nice way of communication, it has actually expanded opportunity for people to get information, but there are a few people who also have been misused these particular opportunities to exchange and source information. So this bill, Mr. Speaker, is good in that it tries to bring discipline to the social media. As we all know, a lot of unfair or very bad things have been going on, stalking of our members or other individuals in Kenya, cyberbullying, and all those kind of things. We also know about this fraud, the banking fraud which is going on, people stealing money by manipulating systems. So this bill is coming at the right time. It's coming at the right time because it's addressing a wide area. It's addressing a wide area which is really very important. Issues of protecting people's private information and data, that is to prevent unauthorized disclosures and also prevent cyber espionage, as we can see it, especially publication of false news or false information is on the rise. Manipulating of information. Personally, I've been a victim whereby there's a lot of photocropping or changing or manipulating information just to achieve a wrong end of things. Publications of various kinds, including pornography that's been mentioned here, is a very serious thing which we need to prevent, especially to protect the young people, the young learners, because of the access. We all know nowadays, everybody at home. If you go to a home state, you find everybody with a mobile. Everybody's busy playing with the mobiles, even the young people. So we need to find a way of protecting them in this kind of digital world. Forgery of all kinds. And so, Mr. Speaker, sir, this particular bill I support very much because it will bring discipline into the sector. But apart from that, it will also streamline functions of various systems so that people don't misuse them in the banking sector, in the business world, in the academic world, that everybody will play their role by using this technology for the right purposes and not to undermine or misuse the given opportunities. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, rise to say I'd like to support this bill. We only need to expand it more so that when we go to third reading, and whereby we look at it clause by clause, we need to see whether we have covered all the sectors so that we don't come back again and bring another bill to cover many sectors. We need actually to be a comprehensive bill. So some misusing these particular tools, especially the social media, where people are being maligned, where people's names are being damaged, where people are creating fake information, and the repercussion of
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I stand to support this bill. And because a lot has been spoken about the same, I want to go to some of the points that I think are very necessary to go on record, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when we listen to the mover of this particular motion, and thereafter submission by the chairman of the Committee of Administration and National Security, we realize that there is a lot of relationship between the two committees as far as this particular bill is concerned. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, as we discuss this bill, we need to look at its implementation. We have had bills, Mr. Speaker, that have been put in place in this country, but because of lack of capacity and sometimes lack of the necessary systems, implementing those bills has been a challenge. This particular bill, Mr. Speaker, touches on prosecution, touches on security, and thereby bringing in our security forces who do the prosecutions and who will do much of the implementation of this bill. So, Mr. Speaker, even as we support this bill, and we fully support it because it's very necessary, I would urge that we look at the possibility of having a joint committee to finalize the bill before it comes to the House, to the full House. Mr. Speaker, the issue we are discussing is an issue that has caused this country a lot of loss in terms of revenue and a lot of time lost by some of our people who spend time on unnecessary things, who spend time bullying and stalking, who spend time conning others through the facilities that have come with technology. Mr. Speaker, we have people who have been abused. We have people, Mr. Speaker, who have actually ended up in having mental disorder because of bullying through some of these technology. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, this is a bill that we need to take very seriously. This is a bill that will have an economic value. We are aware that although not spoken out there, our banks are losing to the tune of 20 billion annually out of misuse of the cyberspace through intrusion, through conning, and through hacking. All these things happening to our government installations, happening to our telecommunication companies, happening to our mobile money, happening to our circles, happening to our microfinances, happening to our cooperative societies. And also, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the number of hours lost by our young men and women, and also some of our aged people in this country, looking at things and engaging at some of the things that are necessary. People going to pornography, spending 6 hours, 7 hours. People who would otherwise have put that time into some better use, Mr. Speaker, we need to come up and put in systems that will prevent that kind of wastage of time. We may not value it now, but even as we continue, we know, Mr. Speaker, our population is growing. Systems are becoming much more complicated. People out there are getting to understand technology much more than we are doing internationally and locally. Mr. Speaker, it's a high time that we as a country start preparing ourselves, not just on the prosecution side that is brought by this bill, Mr. Speaker, but we also need to invest heavily on technology, on top of the technology that is being misused, so that, Mr. Speaker, we can have an effective infrastructural cybersecurity measures that will bring in things like firewalls that will ensure that we do not let access to some of the things that are to be misused by our people, Mr. Speaker. We also know that through the same technology, recruitment and radicalization of our children is also taking place, Mr. Speaker. We need to come in through this bill to ensure that information that is flowing in our systems is not only economically beneficial to the country, but also socially, Mr. Speaker, and also ensure that we can help our security forces or support our security forces by providing information that could be flowing, that could lead to things like radicalization, Mr. Speaker. As I contribute to this bill, Mr. Speaker, I take cognizance of the fact that we as users in what we call third world, we are using a lot of devices and a lot of systems that are coming from international manufacturers. We rely on their trust. We rely on their goodwill, that whatever they give us is not collecting information about ourselves and information about our countries. If you think of it, Mr. Speaker, one gets worried that even some of the equipment that we could be using in our security forces, they themselves could be collecting information and probably sending it somewhere internationally, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, this is why I'm saying we need to really invest heavily and ensure that this bill is implemented in the right place, Mr. Speaker. ICT department can do it, but if they do it, let there be serious support from the administration and the security side of things. But I still believe, Mr. Speaker, that a joint body could be formed, made up of experts from ICT, made up of security forces, so that they come up with a center that will not only be looking at what is happening, but also carrying out intensive research. Research is what will help us to ensure that we are on top of things, Mr. Speaker. We know that every day technology is changing. We know that today, whatever we are talking about, pornography, whatever we are talking about, people sending photos, that's just for today. Tomorrow it will be different things. And I really sympathize, Mr. Speaker, with those of us who have to spend another time in our houses trying to explain how we are not involved in some of the things that come through our devices, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I want to support this bill, and I want to say, as we discuss it, as we pass it, and I take cognizance of the many amendments that people have, honorable members have proposed, and hope that when we get the final product, Mr. Speaker, the final product will be refined, it will be taken seriously, and more so
through a joint committee that brings security experts and ICT experts and any other person who may be able to make a contribution to this particular bill. Is probably one of the most serious bills this House is going to discuss probably this year and probably pass this year, because without this bill, Mr. Speaker, as I said, we're going to lose a lot of revenue, we're going to have a spoiled generation, we're going to have a lost generation, and it will take us time to recollect as a country. I am aware that in our country today and many other countries, Mr. Speaker, there are people who wake up in the morning, take their breakfast, go to their bedrooms, they spend their hours there, they are doing nothing other than phonographing, they are doing nothing other than bullying people locally or internationally, they are doing nothing other than thinking about how they can hack systems out there to cause this country damage. I'm aware that even as we talk about security, Mr. Speaker, there are many of our children now who are engaged as we are talking by people who want to recruit them to be members of outlawed groups, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, the earlier we up our knowledge in this area, the better for the...
Mr. Speaker, and it was indeed a very interesting discourse to listen to other members speak, so I thank you for your wise guidance. I think for housekeeping, I just wanted to know how much time you are according me. Because the Speaker had given a certain directive, so I just wanted to know.
You have, like any other member, the Speaker did not...
He said actually 30 minutes.
No, Honorable Musimba,
yes.
He did not specifically indicate that minutes. He just registered.
He did.
You are... Yes, just continue. I'm going to consult what exactly the Speaker said.
Because it's good so that I'm able to structure it.
Honorable Musiba, let me consult as we consult. Let me give 1-2 members.
That's okay. That's in order. Thank you, Speaker.
As we consult.
Thank you, Speaker.
Honorable order. Order. What is it? What is it? Is it a point of order? Yes, Chairman.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, Musimba has a lot of interest in this bill, and I would request that even if you don't give him half an hour, at least give him minimum 20 minutes so that we don't have to engage going round. Let him speak and speak all so that we don't have, because he had requested that we delay the bill, but we told him to come to the chambers, speak, and then during the committee of the whole house, he also brings his amendments. I'll request if you can give him at least 20 minutes.
Yes, Mr. Honorable Chairman, you're speaking the same issue I raised, that as I consult on what exact direction was given, we give other members to be speaking to it. Honorable Sonkoko, it's not your turn now, because we have to follow. Honorable, no, it's not about, it's about the ordering. Honorable Mishlam.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir. Let me tell you, I'll take shortest time possible. If you do a business, if the loss is more than profit, we revisit the strategy of the business or we stop the business. Similarly, if we run a technology which is, we take the pros and cons, if the disadvantage are more than advantage, then we have to strongly revisit the technology. And however, this is the right time not only in Kenya, but also globally, whole world. We should think about the cybercrime, and we have to revisit and pioneer how to stop and prevent these crimes. Now, I will tell you, we are talking a lot about business, money, sex, and whatever called the power, politics, but also in academics. My own personal experience as 17 years lecturer in the Moi University School of Medicine. The cybercrime happened, and the question papers which we used to prepare, it used to be hacked by some of the interested parties. So we have to write conventionally the question papers, and we have to give. So how to prevent this type of crimes is very important. Now we are talking of governance. As we know, our leadership is going for Big Four, and where there is sensitive ministries and departments of the governance, we have to
Order Honorable Washira Kabinga.
also take other countries' help and also make a cyber club. How to cyber crime prevention club. So all the continents, all their expertise, if we make a club, that will help us. With all these sentiments, I support this motion. Thank you very much, Speaker, sir.
Extremely, Honorable Cheruyot Jasira, I noticed that you have been extremely patient, and I see you on top of the list. Honorable Jasira.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for realizing that. I want to also contribute to this motion, Mr. Speaker, sir, having been a victim in this. Mr. Speaker, sir, like I said one time, it is only that myself, my husband, still have some strong shock absorbers that I'm still with him. Otherwise, the cyberbullying and cyber stalking and all those things you can call about cybercrime are with me. Even though after the very contribution of that day, it's like they subsided. But I'm not thinking that they are gone anywhere. But all I want to say is that we are the representative of the people, and we are the voice of the voiceless in this house. And by so saying, it is true that families have really suffered. People have really suffered in silence, up to, I think, medically. Some of them even have got high blood pressure. Some of them even have developed ulcers. Some of them could be also psychologically tortured because of cyberbullying or cybercrime and computer generally. It would be prudent to let the people of Kenya realize that no one is after the youth. What we are trying to do is to continue bringing the African fabric back, because we have reached an era where a young person is no longer respecting anyone whatsoever. And so in my own thinking, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to believe that however punitive the charges are, it is not as bad as what people undergo. Some others think of it being 25 years or whatever years we've been given, but we should remember that that person who's been affected by computer and cybercrime for this matter might have even had a terminal disease, because high blood pressure cannot be treated once it has come to that person. So what we are saying is the youth of this country should not see themselves like they are being targeted, but we are trying to make things to be in order, because as it is now, we are very disorderly. It is true to say that many homes have been damaged, or even some of them are on the way getting damaged. And you don't know when things come. Anytime, any day or night, you can, or otherwise I also want to advise, personal advice to our youth. Now that I'm also a parent, I also have teenagers in my house, that kindly go slow on what you write on your book, on your computer. And when we talk of computer, our youth should know that computer is inclusive of their phones. At times they might think until you go to a cyber so that you write, then using your phone is not a computer. A phone is a type of a computer, and I want to actually kindly advise them as a mother, that's a motherly advice, that they should avoid. If they are used to cyberbullying, they should now change and turn to other ways of using computers or their phones. If they want to criticize a leader, they should criticize them in terms of their constitutional mandates, but not in their personalities and personal and private lives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Yes, Honorable Mohammed Sheikh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, cybercrime are very real. Cybercrimes, computer and cybercrimes are very real. And I do support this motion. Real in the sense that we cannot, or we can no longer bury our heads in the sand and assume that all is well in our technology world, or techno world, as I put it. Mr. Speaker, our generation has had the greater opportunities of global success through the internet and through technology. But yet again, frustrated by cyber criminals and technological criminals who see backward opportunities in all. We therefore need to protect our families, children, wealth, and of all, the dignity of our society. Given that these cyber bullies and cyber criminals take advantage of the young, the old, exposed to pornography and various other criminal, online criminal issues. But we need to understand what happens globally. Globally, in particular in developed nations, cyberbullying has been recognized as the highest danger to their community. And because they realized that there is a danger within the cyber and new technology, they decided to set up bills and laws, and they enacted those laws to protect their communities. They therefore found that investment in the control of cybercrime as a great investment, Mr. Speaker. We should realize also that it is important that we understand that the moral being of our society is at stake. And we need to stand and protect this very invaluable society of ours from the influence of cyber criminals. And unless we engage ourselves in understanding why this is quite crucial, unless we engage ourselves in planning forward for our community, as the world becomes technologically aware of the issues of cybercrime, then our society will be in the arms of protection. Mr. Speaker, a study by a Deloitte global consultancy suggested that Kenya lost approximately 18 billion shillings on cybercrime in 2016. Deloitte also suggested that in 2015, that Kenya is the 69th most vulnerable country out of 127 countries they have examined. And therefore, cybercrime is real. And we need to understand that these criminals will do all possible means to ensure that they take advantage of our vulnerable members of our society. I do stand here to support this motion that the protection of our community must be enacted within our laws. The protection of our communities from cybercrime, that's what I mean, and technological crime, or computer and cybercrime. The only way we can protect our community is to enact those laws and to ensure that those laws have been used on the ground, and that the criminals are aware that the big brother is watching. And the big brother is the law of the nation. I therefore support this motion and will be very happy to see that this bill has come into action. Thank you very much.
Honorable Shaban.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to also about, but at the same time, they do not look at the other articles of the Constitution. In the preamble, it is quite obvious that this Constitution was made for the Kenyans, to protect Kenyans, and also to make sure that families are protected, and the nation at large. Mr. Speaker, sir, when you look at our Bill of Rights, Article 28 talks about human dignity, that every person has inherent dignity and the right to have that dignity respected and protected. The same way, when you look at Article 29 on freedom and security of the person, 29D is quite obvious that people should not be subjected to torture, psychological torture, and what cybercrime does is to actually subject people to psychological torture. When you look at Article 31, the same constitution talks about the privacy of the Kenyans. The same Article 33 on freedom of expression actually gives limitations to where people have got the freedom of expression, and the limitations on 33(2) are very, very clear. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would urge all my colleagues to look at the Constitution in totality, not to look at what suits them and leave out what does not suit them. Mr. Speaker, sir, I know my colleague from Rarieda was the chair of Ombudsman, but apart from being the chair of Ombudsman, he's also a constitutional lawyer. But apart from being a constitutional lawyer, as much as he's been elected by the people of Rarieda, it is important for him to use his knowledge in a way that it will help Kenyans, not to destroy Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I talk like that, I do refer to the fact that he talked about they hacked the systems to get to know. Mr. Speaker, sir, I can tell you, if they actually hacked the system and got to know the results they are purporting to be putting around, this country would have been on fire. The truth is, he should have told people how he was in the committee which was making up those figures, and they came up with those figures to come and lie to Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is important for us Kenyans to respect the constitutional right of Kenyans to elect the leaders they would want to elect and actually allow Kenya to be able to move on. And on that note, I want to thank the opposition party leader who the other day shook hands with the president and finally accepting this is the duly elected president of this country. It is very, very important. Mr. Speaker, sir, this cybercrime, the social media spaces, have destroyed families. Mr. Speaker, sir, people have been subjected to pain where their children have not even been able to do well in schools because their parents are being attacked in the social media. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is important for us to note that there are people who have died of a heart attack just because of the propaganda and the lies which are usually, and untruths which are usually perpetrated through the social media. So this bill comes at a time when we need it. It should have been here before. I know that time maybe we were not ready for it, but the more we look at it, the more we need it. When you look at the fines, the offenses, and the fines which have been imposed, Mr. Speaker, sir, it talks about up to 20 million, up to 7 million. That means the judge who is presiding over this case can make a decision on whether to ask this person to pay 500,000 or to ask this person to pay 20 million. It is up to the presiding judge to make that decision. And also, even in terms of the jail sentences, it also gives them the upward limit. It doesn't give them the minimum limit. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I think this bill is quite in order. And as we are moving on, it is important for people to bring their amendments in the third reading so that those amendments can be carried on board. But we have to be convinced that the amendments which are brought here are going to be useful to Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, sir, most of the people who agitate against punishment for cybercrime people, for perpetrators, are people who most likely have used those same pages to destroy others. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I think time has come for Kenya to embrace this, and we have to learn from the countries where this has been stopped completely, and we have to be able to move on. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, sir, I give my support to this bill.
Very well. Honorable Musimba, now I have consulted on the time that the Speaker did indicate. And in line of the Speaker's pronouncement earlier, that you would possibly get as much time as would be needed by yourself to present and prosecute your presentation. I will, for now, give you the first 10 minutes, and then after that, we shall have you raise to me or to the chair the additional time that you would need, and a decision would be made at that point. You have your 10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I want to thank you for your wise counsel of actually getting to listen to the other members. And I think it's been very interesting discourse this afternoon as to the extent of this particular motion and indeed the bill that is being proposed. I'll start, Mr. Speaker, about jurisdiction, because that's one of the biggest concerns that is raised by this particular bill. Cyberspace is out there, and you have to be able to see how does it correlate to the average Kenyan, and why is it important to Kenyans? You know, this whole issue of computer and cybercrime. It's because
Honorable Musiba.
Yes.
What is it, Honorable George Masharia?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think looking at the number of members in the House, I believe, and I can see we do not have quorum. And Honorable Musimba has very good contribution to make to this bill. And it is not fair that he speaks to an empty house. It is not fair that all the good points he wants to raise cannot be listened to members who will sit here to pass this bill into law. I am a member of the ICT committee, the vice chairman, and we have done a very good job looking at this bill, which has 46 clauses. And we invited Honorable Musimba to come and make his contributions. And we also advised him to come to the House to attend and make contributions here. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I think it is important and very, very necessary that Honorable Musimba makes his contribution when the House has quorum. I do not want to say that the House does not have quorum, but that's my point. But Mr. Speaker, he can make his contributions, but let us look at let us give him another chance when the House is full. But my standing here does not, I'm not standing here to say that there is no quorum, but it's just an observation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, fair point, Honorable Judge Masharia. I can see we have 3 minutes to the end of the time, but Clerk, can you just confirm to me whether there is quorum?
I'm sorry I had to speak.
No, not an issue, Chair. Not an issue. Yeah. Ma'am?
Hello? Yes, honorable member who has raised the issue of quorum. You know, our standing order actually says you ring the bell for 10 minutes to secure the quorum, and we have 2 minutes remaining to the end of the day. So, in the circumstances, there is no need actually to ring the bell, because you have to ring the bell for 10 minutes. We have only, actually not 2 minutes, you have 1 minute, 30 seconds to end this particular session. In that case, Honorable Musiba, the time that you had been allocated has been noted, and that will be picked up when this matter comes back.
The time that you had spoken is already recorded. So you have, as I had indicated, you have your first 10 minutes. After that, the chair will ask you how many more minutes you need, and at that point, the chair will make the decision how many more minutes to add you. That comes when this matter comes back in the order paper, as to be guided and directed by the House Business Committee. I'm sure, Honorable Musimba, that is very, very clear. In fact, Honorable Musimba and Honorable members, the time is up. Honorable members, the time being 7 p.m., this House started adjourned till Thursday, 22nd March 2018 at 2:30 p.m.